Welcome everybody to the PDC Racing League Grand Finale, Season 2, coming to what promises to be a spectacular close tonight here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The Roval is the version of the circuit we're racing at tonight, and we're bringing you the usual two races, one 20-minute race, one 30-minute race, both of which will work to decide the outcome of the championship. And with 6 drivers mathematically still in contention, and 4 of those you would have to say realistically still in contention to win the title, it's going to be a night full of twists, turns and surprises. Pretty much exactly like all of the other race nights that we've had throughout Season 2. It's been an absolutely spectacular few weeks of racing in the PDC Racing League. It all started back at Okayama just over a month ago. Alton Park played host to the second race meeting a week later. Then it was Laguna Seca. Donington Park last week produced some sensational action, probably the most dramatic racing in the history of the PDC Racing League, and it sets us up very nicely arriving here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, where we still have absolutely no idea who is going to come out on top in this championship fight. Well, before we delve into tonight's action, which is getting underway now, qualifying has just begun, but it's a 10-minute session tonight as opposed to the 5-minute sessions that we had previously. So we've got a bit of time to build up to this first. So let's remind ourselves, whilst the drivers are getting up to speed, of what happened last time at Donington Park. It was sort of this battle between Ben Leach and Dan Blake that was being set up, with Blake the points leader. Leach was closing in fast though, and Ben did his championship hopes the world of good with a race victory in race number 1. Freddie Hewitt was second, and Abby Pulling got herself onto the podium. Chris Knox was 4th and Ben Sharp 5th. Now, the name that you're not seeing there in the top 5 is that of Dan Blake, who lost the points lead as a result of a 9th place finish in race number 1 after some drama in the early stages. So Dan Blake lost quite a lot of points in that first race. In race 2, though, things did kind of come back his way a little bit. He finished second behind Freddie Hewitt, who got his first ever victory in the PDC Racing League. Abby Pulling was once again on the podium in 3rd position, Ben Sharp 4th, and then Ben Leach crossed the line in 5th, but actually there was a post-race penalty, so you can swap out Ben Leach and Carl Jacquelet on that graphic. Jacquelet inherits 5th place. Ben Leach was given a post-race time penalty as a result of some contact that he had with Knox in the latter part of the race. So that dropped him from 5th to 6th, obviously lost him a few championship points as well, and that all means that as we arrive here at the final 2 races of the season, this is how the points look. Now, this is the points before we apply drop scores. Dan Blake, you can see, with a pretty healthy cushion on 235 points. Ben Leach second on 218. Freddie Hewitt third on 202, with Chris Knox and David Ward inside the top 5. Ian Crosby, you'll notice, is all the way down in 7th place. Actually gains a bit of ground once you start to add in the drop scores as well. Ben Leach, though, is the big winner. He goes from being second in the points to leading on drop scores because he didn't race with us at the first race meeting of the season at Okayama. So Ben Leach has 2 0 scores against his name. They have become his 2 drop scores. So he is on 218 points, with Dan Blake having much more of a consistent season, having competed across all of the races so far. 9 points back on 209. So that's the important one. The drop scores are the final scores, and 9 points in it, with Freddie Hewitt in 3rd. 30 points off the top, but really coming on strong in the second half of the season. He could mount a late surge to the title. Chris Knox is only 6 points behind him, though, in 4th, so definitely they're the 4 that are absolutely in this. And then David Ward and Ian Crosby are long shots. They need a lot of good luck, whilst the other 4 have a lot of bad luck to get themselves into contention, but they absolutely could get there. It is not out of the reckoning completely that they could find themselves in the championship fight, but the same with Ben Sharp. They need quite a bit of luck, really, for the drivers, bad luck for the drivers in front of them to get themselves right up there in the points. So, the first opportunity to score points is, of course, in qualifying. As ever in the PDC Racing League, qualifying gives out championship points. 10 points for pole position, 8 for second, 7 for third, and so on, back through the top 10 finishers, or top 10 starters, I suppose, for the race later on. And it is going to be real dogfight here to try and get pole position. Ben Leach has been the master of qualifying so far, and he's doing exactly what we expected of him here. We're riding on board with the points leader, and Ben Leach was fastest, but Freddie Hewitt, fellow championship rival, has just pipped him to the top time Leach, though, is coming through the final banked corners here at the Charlotte Roval, down towards the final chicane. Speed building nicely here, and he might be able to improve again. Michael Seal has just gone third quickest. Dan Blake, therefore, demoted to fourth, and Alex Rhodes is up there in the top 5. We are into the second half of the session already. What can Ben Leach do? He hammers the curbs through the chicane, crosses the start-finish line, and goes back to pole position by a full second. A full second. That is absolutely incredible from Ben Leach, and Ben Leach is going to be a really tough man to beat tonight if he keeps that sort of pace up. Adam Southgate and Abby Pulling, by the way, have just improved as well. They now lock out the second row of the grid, but surely no one's going to be able to touch that time with Ben Leach. 1:31.79. Here is Dan Blake, the nearest man to him in the points, but right now he would be 6 positions behind. He's setting purple sectors, though, on this lap. He's got one of his Year One Racing teammates in front, which needs to try and get out of the way because Dan Blake is on a flyer. It does pull to the high side. That's the 113 car staying well out of Dan Blake's way, and Dan Blake gets to the chicane unimpeded, crosses the line. Can he improve from 6th? Surely he'll have some sort of improvement. Yes, he goes second, still 6.5 tenths off pole position, but Dan Blake is at least back on the front row of the grid. Gavin Johnson jumps into the top 5. Alex Rhodes has an improvement, so too Pip Hammond. They're both towards the back end of the top 10, but there's Gavin Johnson, one of the men behind the PDC Racing League in the RS Components car, and he has just jumped himself into the top 5. 5th position for the number 9 car, which this season is not a championship contending car, but in season 1, of course, Gavin was one of the drivers that arrived at the final pair of races, which on that occasion took place at Donington Park, in contention to beat Dan Blake to the title. In the end, it didn't happen. Dan Blake was able to take the championship, but he's not had such an easy time of it in his title defence so far. Ben Leach, by the way, has just completed another lap that was not quite good enough for an improvement, but it still would have been easily good enough for pole position. It was a 32.0 as opposed to a 31.79, which was his previous best, but Dan Blake's best is a 32.43. That is the sort of advantage that that Ben Leach has here, and if he scores those 10 championship points, of course, the gap goes out between himself and Dan Blake rather than coming down. Now, this is Chris Knox. Chris Knox is 36 points off the top of the championship table. He's just improved to 7th position, but that's not really enough. He needs to try and work his way further up the order, not only for track position in the race, but of course for those valuable championship points as well. Qualifying in 7th place, he would score 4 points, which obviously is 6 less than the championship leader Ben Leach will be scoring. So immediately that gap that's 36 points at the moment would go up to 42. Between Chris Knox and the championship leader. Pulling third now, Freddie Hewitt fourth, so some more improvements, and Jake Wood there having a big moment. Now, Jake Wood is a very, very exciting addition to the entry list tonight because Jake is the youngest competitor racing with us. He is just 13 years of age, would you believe, and he is the first driver to graduate from the Sunday Special Series, which has been a series of races that the PDC Racing League has been putting on over the last sort of month and a half or so, one every 2 to 3 weeks they've been doing generally. And those Sunday special races are an opportunity for friends and family members, relatives of the regular PDC Racing League drivers to have a crack at sim racing. So we've seen everything. We've seen fathers, we've seen sons, we've seen brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters. We've had all sorts of different drivers appearing on the grid, and Jake Wood is the son of Jason Wood, and he is substituting for his father tonight, making his main league debut. He is a very rapid driver. He's won every one of the Sunday specials that they've run so far. They've had 4 of them, and he's won every single one of them. So Jake Wood is definitely one to watch. Has a slightly scrappy run out of the chicane there, but let's see what this lap time is going to be for Jake. Crosses the start-finish line in car number 10, and he was off track, unfortunately, at one point, so he's still down in 30th place. He's had that lap time disallowed as a result of track limits. Now, back at the sharp end, an improver from Henry Church. Now, Henry Church is another new name in the championship, and again, not necessarily someone that we expected to be that close to the front, but he is the 3rd car in the Team Cheetah mix. Team Cheetah have brought in an extra driver in the shape of Henry Church tonight to try and assist Freddie Hewitt's championship quest. So he will be teammates to Freddie Hewitt, who's also up there towards the pointy end. And perhaps this is in answer to Year One Racing's sort of numerical advantage they've got. Dan Blake, of course, and Chris Knox, both Year One Racing drivers. And yeah, we'll see whether or not Henry Church is able to assist Freddie Hewitt in winning the championship. Meanwhile, the checkered flag is out, and Ben Leach has gone even quicker again, a 1:31.48. Well, Henry Church had got to about half a second of pole position, but that late improvement from Ben Leach puts paid to any chance, surely, of anyone stealing pole position from him. Adam Southgate crashes after the checkered flag, having just improved to 8th position, just behind Chris Knox, who is still 7th. Dan Blake has pitted, so he will round the session out no higher than 5th. The real question here is, what can people like Freddie Hewitt and maybe, well, Chris Knox, I think, has seen the checkered flag now, so what can Freddie Hewitt do on this lap? There's Mike Hart. He was one of the front runners at Donington a week ago, and he's down in 10th position right now. Kyle Power jumps into 12th. There goes Freddie Hewitt, and it wasn't... sorry, no, he's just going through the back straight chicane, so he is on a lap, and he couldn't have got closer to that wall. Now, they're allowed to cut that corner there. He went down underneath the blue and white line, but that is perfectly legal on this version of the track. There is no out of bounds, so you can run wherever you like, and you can take that short line through the chicane. Of course, through this chicane, though, you have to then obey track limits because there's an actual curb there to stop you cutting the corner too much. A curb that Freddie Hewitt launches himself over. Can he improve on 4th place? Yes, he can! Freddie Hewitt goes 2nd fastest, and that could be absolutely pivotal because it gets him directly in front of his new teammate, Henry Church, and it also scores him an extra couple of championship points. And Ben Leach then gets the pole position by the looks of it. He is going to score the 10 championship points. Chris Knox there could not improve and actually ended up in 8th place because Carl Chacolette came through and pipped him to 7th position at the flag. So that was interesting there, shall we say. Carl Chacolette with a late improvement. Adam Southgate's not going to improve. So let's very quickly update the points then. So Ben Leach scores the maximum 10 points for starting on pole position. Freddie Hewitt gets the 8 for qualifying in 2nd. And then of the other championship contenders, Dan Blake ends up in 5th position. That's worth 6 championship points, 4 fewer than Ben Leach, of course. So the gap will definitely go out between them. And Chris Knox, the other one we really need to watch here, 8th position for him means only 3 championship points, all of which means that the advantage that was 9 points for Ben Leach now goes out to 13. So 13 points his edge over Dan Blake coming into the first of our 2 races tonight. So let's run you through the grid then. This is how the whole field will line up for our 20-minute race, the sprint race here at the Charlotte Roval. Ben Leach, the championship leader, on pole position with Freddie Hewitt 2nd. Henry Church and Gavin Johnson share row number 2 with Dan Blake and Abby Pulling on the 3rd row. Carl Chacolette and Chris Knox with work to do from row 4. Adam Southgate and Alex Rivette meanwhile round out the top 10. Then it's Mike Hart and Michael Seal with Kyle Power and Chris Nyland sharing row 7. Ian Crosby and Ed Cooper on row 8 with Pip Hammond down on row 9 alongside Alex Rhodes, Sam Holman and Ben Sharp round out the top 20. That's interesting. Ben Sharp, another driver you would have thought would be inside the top 10, but he's languishing down in 20th place. Then on the 11th row, Lima Bett and Ben Best with Alex Hall and Ben Bateman next up. Then it's Ian Best and Charles Kellyman, Kevin McGlone and the youngster Jake Wood, who improved to 28th at the end, ahead of Alan Toon, Doug Hamilton, Kevin Boland, David Ward, all the way down in 32nd, championship contender mathematically, David Ward. He clearly had some troubles in that session with Lee Vaughan and Ian Court on the back row together. So this is a 20-minute race. It is worth 35 championship points to the winner, so the race victory will be very hotly contested, I'm sure. Can Ben Leach take the victory and put one hand on the championship title, or is Freddie Hewitt, or maybe even someone like Dan Blake, going to be able to mount a challenge to him and try and take those points away from him? We'll find out very shortly because the last couple of drivers are just being added onto the grid. I think the last driver is now in. That was Pip Hammond we were waiting for. The red lights are on then. The sprint race here for the PDC Racing League at the Charlotte Roval about to burst into life. Ben Leach has the pole position with his championship rival Freddie Hewitt alongside. Lights out, away they go. The rush towards turn 1 begins, and it's a good start by both front row men. Freddie Hewitt immediately pulls in behind Ben Leach. He goes on the attack into turn 1, takes the wider line in, tries to carry the speed off, which he does. Has a look to the inside. Freddie Hewitt there side by side for the race lead into turn number 2, and Freddie Hewitt can't quite get there. Ben Leach carried the speed on the outside line and holds off the youngster into turn 3, gets a bit sideways on cold tyres though, And Freddie Hewitt sees a chance to get up the inside. Leach is very, very, very sideways. He's off. He's in the barriers almost, Ben Leach. The championship leader has thrown away the race lead already. Hewitt goes through. Henry Church's teammate goes through. That could be pivotal. And Gavin Johnson as well. Dan Blake had gone ahead. Oh, contact! And Ben Leach is involved. I don't believe it. Henry Church loses control. He's collected by Ben Leach. Dan Blake was off the road as well. So the top two in the championship have both just been involved in an incident halfway around the first lap of the race. There's lots of damage to the front of Ben Leach's car. He might have to make a pit stop. He can barely get the car through the corner. And Ben Leach's championship advantage could be shrinking by the second here. He's being overtaken left, right and centre, and surely he is going to have to come into the pit lane to get the damage fixed. There goes another one of the Team Cheetah cars past him. That's number 61. This could not have worked better for Freddie Hewitt. Here's what happened. There was no contact. Leach just took too much speed into the corner. He avoids the barrier there. There's a spin for Jackalette and I think Adam Southgate in the background. And then something happens to Henry Church going into the next right-hander. Just loses it. And as he spins back across the track, he collects Ben Leach. And Dan Blake himself had already been off the road and given a place away to Chris Knox, but actually that took him out of the firing line, ironically, so there's no damage to Blake's car, and he will end lap 1 down in 4th position. Here's the replay again. Leach gets sideways, loses the rear of the car, and then that's Henry Church coming through into second. Now remember, he's the teammate of Freddie Hewitt, so it was a 1-2 at the moment for Team Cheetah, but then that purple and blue car loses control through the next corner. As he spins back across the road, nothing that Ben Leach could do to avoid him, and I'm pretty sure that Ben Leach has now headed for the pit lane. Yes, he has. So too, disappointingly, has Gavin, I'm sure I just saw Gavin, yeah, Gavin Johnson's in the pit lane. Lots of drivers in the pits, in fact, at the end of the opening lap. Gavin Johnson, Ben Leach, Carl Jackalette, Sam Holman. About 10 or 12 cars have headed into the pit lane after the first lap, so lots of people have been involved in contact. Carl Jackalette we saw having a spin going through turn 3 at the start. Adam Southgate also went off in the background, so real drama here. Then Charles Kellyman's just pitted as well. All of this, though, happening behind Freddie Hewitt, who has a 4.7 second cushion over this battle for second place. Chris Knox on the right. On the left is Kyle Power, who started 13th, and he's going for second place now around the outside of a championship contender. Kyle Power is not in the championship battle. He is in the wall, almost coming out of the chicane there, but he's managed to execute the overtake anyway. And then the third man in this group is Dan Blake. So this is second, third, and fourth. And 2 of these 3 drivers are mathematically in contention for the title. And with the issues for Ben Leach, they are very much in the running now. Chris Knox is the one that really needs to try and get a result here, though. He's further back in the championship coming into this race than Dan Blake is. So it's really important that he tries to maximise this chance that he's been given with Ben Leach out of the points. And of course the wider picture here for Ben Leach gets even bleaker, I'm afraid, because Ben, having not competed in those first 2 rounds of the championship at Okayama, as I said earlier on, he's already used up 2 drop scores, so a 0 now have to count it. He can't count it as a drop score, and that will almost certainly not put him out of contention, but certainly will lose in the championship lead, provided, of course, people like Dan Blake and Chris Knox and Freddie Hewitt continue to run as strongly as they are. Speaking of running strongly, Pip Hammond has gained 11 places, and just in front of him, Ben Sharp, who in 2.5 laps has gained 15 spots. Ben Sharp started down in 20th position. I made mention of him as I ran through the grid, and he is starting to catch now, actually, his Alpha Live Year 1 Racing teammate, Dan Blake. So there is Ben Sharp. Look, he's made terrific progress, but I don't think he's going to make life too difficult for Dan Blake, his teammate, who could be on the verge of reclaiming the championship lead with a race to go. Chris Knox, meanwhile, is back into second place now, ahead of Kyle Power. So Kyle Power and Chris Knox continuing to trade this second place now, with Dan Blake, Ben Sharp, Pip Hammond and Ian Crosby all starting to close back in behind. So they head them up through the gears, through the final banked turns here, but then there's one more chicane before the end of the lap. They veer back down onto the apron to the left-hand side of the road. Very difficult braking zone, that, because of the chains of surface from the banked oval to the flat infield, and then back out into the oval again. Or just as quickly as you enter it, you head back out of it again through turn number 1, the corner that causes real-life NASCAR drivers some real headaches every time that NASCAR comes and races here. So far, though, I don't think anyone in this race has made a mistake at the first corner, but we've seen mistakes plenty elsewhere. Chris Knox making one, in fact, just in front of us. Look, the man at the front of this queue ran a bit wide going out of turn 3. Takes a nice line through turn 4, though, gathers it back together. On board then with Dan Blake. Blake could be about to take the points lead here. He's running in 4th place at the moment. That would be worth 22 championship points. And with Ben Leach scoring nothing, that would put Dan Blake 9 points in front of Ben Leach going into the second race. Remember, he was 9 points behind him coming into this one. It could all change, though. He may yet gain more places because they're battling in front of him again. Kyle Power goes up the inside of Chris Knox now. That loses Knox second place, and Kyle Power gets back into P2, but I think they're going to keep on trading this position pretty much until the race is over, I would imagine. Dan Blake, you can see, really wants to get involved, and he told us before the race got underway that he was just going to send it tonight and get stuck straight in. I think he's decided maybe discretion might be the better part of valour now that his championship rival is off the road and not going to score points. Spin in the background, I think I saw then. Who was that went for... was it Pip? Yeah, Pip's dropped back, hasn't he? So Pip Hammond's had a spin. We're going to see what happened to him now. Pip Hammond, the white and red RS car, number 71, who was dicing away with the Specsavers machine of Ian Crosby. Oh, too much speed into the chicane, lost the rear. He still had too much brake on as he turned into the corner, and that weight over the nose of the car was enough to pitch him into a spin. He rejoins just ahead of David Ward, actually, who's also got damage, and I think that's Ed Cooper behind them both as well. So that puts Pip Hammond a long way down the oil well. Actually, no, 9th place, not quite as far back as I thought. David Ward, though, has gained 22 positions from where he started. So, obviously, a lot of those positions gained by other people going off, but nonetheless, he's done well to get through without too much damage himself. Side by side there for second again. Looked as though Kyle Power was going back up the inside of Chris Knox, which he was. And then this is the battle going on behind them for Ben Sharp and Ian Crosby. So Ben Sharp is in 5th place right now, and I think quite happy to play rear gunner to his teammate now. We're definitely still starting to hear about some team tactics coming into this championship finale. Ben Sharp is highly unlikely to start applying the pressure to that man, car number 1, the man with the yellow helmet, Dan Blake, who's 3rd in line here. 8 seconds behind the leader. That car in front of them is a back marker that's about to go 1 lap down. So they turn their way through the chicane, through the left, the right, up against the wall, but not into it, hopefully. And this 5-car gaggle makes its way onto the banking once again. We're ticking towards half-race distance now. It's just settling down ever so slightly, maybe. So Chris Knox then running in that 3rd position right now. There's Alex Rhodes, meanwhile, further back, turning his way through the chicane, car 102. And Alex Rhodes is in 13th place. And a shout out, yes, Graham Sessford, our producer, read my mind. Jake Wood is still in the race. He has not been caught up in the dramas at the start. He's 17th in his first ever appearance in the PDC Racing League. He's running in 17th spot, well within the top 20. 17 is a number significantly higher than his actual age. 13 years of age, Jake Wood, and a real talent for the future, I think. He's really been impressing here. He's picked up 11 places. He is more or less matching the pace of the car in front of him, although Michael Seal is catching him quite rapidly behind. But that's what you'd expect. These are drivers that have been racing in the PDC Racing League for the best part now of 2 full seasons, and also racing in the real world as well. Jake Wood, of course, not racing anywhere really other than in his bedroom. So he was telling me a week or so ago when we did the last Sunday special that he's done a lot of video game racing on PlayStations and Xboxes and other things like that, but he has very limited actual iRacing sim experience, but he's really starting to put in a good performance here. Now, what of Ben Leach? Ben Leach is in 19th place right now. Now, he's just set the fastest lap of the race, and that's significant because that's worth a championship point, a 1:31.52. Not a great surprise to me, honestly, that Ben Leach has been able to set the fastest lap because he was by far and away the fastest driver in qualifying earlier on. But the question now is whether or not he will be able to get into the top 15. The top 15 drivers score points. He's running 19th. He's about to take 18th place away from Michael Seal. He's probably, though, a good 20 seconds or more behind the points-paying positions, and we're into the second half of the race now, so I don't know whether or not Ben Leach is going to be able to get to the points, but he has at least banked that one bonus point for fastest lap, provided no one else beats his lap time here. He's been in the pits, of course. He's made repairs to the car, and he was able to use a fast repair because he drove back to the pit lane under his own steam, so it didn't take quite as long to repair that car as it would have done in real life. And so he moves himself up there into 18th spot now, Ben Leach, and already starting to pull away from the cars behind. Here, though, is the man that would take the championship lead away from him as things stand. Dan Blake would now only be 8 points clear, though, because of that extra point scored by Ben Leach. And don't forget that the difference between finishing first and second in one of these races is 7 points. So if they were to finish 1-2 in the next race, Blake would almost have to beat Ben Leach, really. Also, you've got another qualifying session coming up before race 2, which is another chance to start scoring some points. Now, something strange has happened here, though, because we've had another mix-up. Kyle Power, Chris Knox and Dan Blake are still second, third and fourth, but look at the gap they've pulled over Ben Sharp in fifth. That's now 6.6 seconds, and I don't see any sign of Ian Crosby behind him. Crosby's dropped to 12th place, so there's Ben Sharp. Has he had a bit of a tangle maybe with Crosby whilst we were checking in on some of the drivers further down the order? Yeah, the danger, of course, of taking our eyes off this battle. It looked as though it was calming down, but maybe not. Sharp has survived, but he's lost a lot of time, as I said. That means Ben Bateman moves into 6th place now, having gained 18 spots from where he started. Abby Pulling, one of the few drivers up into the top half of the field to have lost ground, actually, from where she started. She's in 7th now, having started 6th. I'm going to see a replay here of what happened to Ian Crosby, I believe. And unfortunately, I'm not quite... Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah, I'm going to see... No, he's heading into the final chicane, I think, and my screen has chosen a brilliant time to not show me what the replay was supposed to be showing me there, but he just he locked up going into the chicane, which is very easy to do. There he is. He's rejoined now, but with lots of damage having hit the barrier, so it was self-inflicted by the looks of it then for Ian Crosby. Loses out there to one of the Year One racing cars. I'm afraid I can't tell you who that was because they've lost their rear number and they've... it's Alex Rivette, there we go. Yeah, they've lost their rear number on the wing, Alex Rivette. So Rivette moves it to 12th, Ian Crosby down to 13th. It once again is the fight for second place. Kyle Power, Chris Knox, Dan Blake. Now, this has not been a very Dan Blake-like performance, and not in that he's not doing very well, because he is. He's running in 4th place. He's scoring more points than those that he really needs to be beating. He's not sort of the attitude of the car does not look very aggressive. He is not trying to overtake Chris Knox. He is not trying to overtake Kyle Power. He's got no pressure at all from behind him. I think Dan Blake would be reasonably happy with a 4th place finish here, given how the points are sitting right now. He might be forced into this battle, though, if they keep on running side by side in front, but they've kind of got this down to a fine art now. Knox will get a run at Power and go through, and then Power will regroup and come back at him half a lap later, but this time Dan Blake does get involved and has a little look to the inside into turn number 3. That puts him on the outside for turn number 2, and on the outside into turn number 3. This is where it all went wrong for Ben Leach on the first lap, remember. Sits back in behind. He is not going to put himself in too dangerous a position here. Now, the one calculation I haven't made yet was giving Freddie Hewitt those 35 points that it looks as though he'll get for winning the race. And if I do that, that puts him on to 231. So actually, as things stand, it would not be Ben Leach that Dan Blake had to worry about. It would be Freddie Hewitt. Hewitt would leapfrog Ben Leach by a couple of points. He'd only be 6 points behind Dan Blake. So Dan Blake needs to be careful here not to get too distracted by Ben Leach. Ben Leach is out of the points, and yeah, that's great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Blake can settle for 4th here, because Freddie Hewitt is outscoring them all by quite a long way. Side by side again in front of Blake. Oh, and Power is sideways, and he's off! Kyle Power is off! That time it went wrong. He went around the outside of Chris Knox for about the 3rd or 4th time into that chicane, but on that occasion, he lost the rear of the car and spun off into the barriers, and that changes everything, because now Dan Blake is into 3rd. That scores him an extra 3 championship points, which puts him on 240 points, and so he, instead of being 6 points ahead of Freddie Hewitt, he would now be 9 points clear. Is how it happened. It's just going to be a simple outbreak. It's very similar to what happened to Pip Hammond earlier on, actually. Power just took too much speed in on the dirtier side of the road, didn't have the grip, and he's able to rejoin, and he'll be quite grateful that the others behind had delayed themselves, because although Ben Sharp has gone through, which you can see there, Ben Sharp just in front of him now in 4th, has at least been able to rejoin in 5th. Here is Ben Leach. Ben Leach is in 16th position and only 4 seconds away from the top 15. So that's the next storyline that's starting to develop. We've been saying that Hewitt might be about to become Dan Blake's nearest rival, but with every position that Ben Leach picks up from now on, it will start earning him more championship points. He just improved on his previous best fastest lap, incidentally, at 131.29, which is a full 8/10 of a second quicker than the race leader has done. For reference, Chris Knox, I think, is the only other driver who's been in the 131 so far in this race. So Leach pretty much has that bonus point for fastest lap wrapped up, and with a couple of people heading for the pit lane, he's now in the points. Ben Leach is now into 14th position, and that gives him a couple of championship points. So Ben Leach now would score 3 points, and that would put him tied with Freddie Hewitt. So the next move that Ben Leach makes, put him back into second place provisionally in the championship, all provisional, mainly because I can't count and I'm having to rely on a spreadsheet that's making the calculations for me. I also can't use computers, really. So according to the spreadsheet, that's what the points are like. Of course, it's also provisional until any post-race incidents might be reviewed, but I don't think any of our championship rivals have instigated any incidents. They've maybe been the innocent victims in a couple, certainly in the shape of Ben Leach. So now what does Dan Blake do then? As it stands, Blake would have a 9-point cushion, by my reckoning, over both Freddie Hewitt and Ben Leach. If he gets through into second place, though, he would gain an extra 3 points. He'd be 12 points up. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth going for those 2 bonus points? Knowing Dan as I do, it would be very unlikely that he'd settle for third place here. But as I've said all along in this race, it's been a much more patient Dan Blake, a much more considered Dan Blake, and a much less aggressive Dan Blake than we've become used to seeing in recent weeks. Now, though, the body language of the car is starting to change. Now that it's just mano a mano against Chris Knox, it looks as though he is maybe starting to apply the pressure. He's turning in earlier, he's hitting the apex harder, he's carrying a bit more speed into the corners. That tells me that he's trying to line up an overtake, and this could be the chance to do so. He's in the tow, he pulls to the outside, and Chris Knox is not going to make this easy for him, because Knox is trying to keep his championship hopes alive as well, remember. They hit the brakes into the chicane, Knox slightly later, despite being on the inside line, but in the end they both take very similar speed through the corner, and they stay in the same order. So that means Knox stays in second, Blake stays in third. They both stay 10 seconds, though, behind Freddie Hewitt. In fact, they're not staying 10 seconds behind. That gap is growing by the corner. Freddie Hewitt is just absolutely flying right now in the front of the field. Not quite quick enough to get that fastest lap away from Ben Leach, who's now into the 130s. He's just showboating how Ben Leach, 130.99. He's improved again. 8.7 seconds behind Ian Court, which will be the next driver he could overtake for another championship point. Freddie Hewitt's big challenge now, really, is picking his way through the traffic. That's the Year 1 racing driver, Carl Jacquelet, staying out of his way nicely. Freddie Hewitt has lapped, therefore, everyone up to and including the 19th place driver. The next car to put a lap down will be his teammate, Henry Church, who I said before the race started that Henry had been brought in to try and help Freddie's championship hopes. And when he got into second place behind Freddie at the start, I thought, yeah, that's great. He'll just play rear gunner now. Little did I know that a quarter and a half later, he would go off and collect the championship leader. And I'm not for a second suggesting that was intentional either. It was clearly just one of those cold tire moments that Leach himself had had at the previous corner. But there is a lot of irony there that he ended up taking out his teammate's big championship rival in the shape of Ben Leach, the number 50 car. Back to the second place battle now as we move into the final stages of this race. So now Dan Blake is starting to get a bit more desperate, and Chris Knox is very late on the brakes on the inside line to defend the place, but he easily makes the corner. So Dan Blake stays behind. Back markers staying to the high side through the banking, which is definitely the sensible thing to do, staying out of the way of the second and third place drivers. Out of the banking they go. Chris Knox in second. Dan Blake, if he makes a move, where does he make the move? Or will he be happy to settle for third position? They both take a nice line through the chicane onto what I believe will be the final lap, potentially, of this race. I think we're probably not going to have time for another one. So this will be the last lap of this 2.3 mile Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. And it has produced lots of tense racing in the first 20-minute encounter of the night. The second race, remember, coming up later, or in not very long, actually. They'll move straight from this race into another qualifying session, and then the 30-minute feature race will be on. But we've got to settle this battle for second place still. This is possibly very valuable championship points here on offer for both of these drivers. Chris Knox really needs them, but Dan Blake is the one most likely maybe to seal the championship out of these two, so you could argue he needs them more. Both take very tight lines there through the left-hander. Chris Knox knocking the cones down. Dan Blake couldn't be any closer to his gearbox, though. Can he get to the inside through the banking? That's the preferred line because it gives you the inside line for the chicane at the end of the back straight. But Chris Knox manages to pull down low. Blake then has no choice but to go to the outside and tries to carry some speed. Now, this is the move that Kyle Power tried on Chris Knox a few laps ago and ended up spinning away a position. Dan Blake doesn't make the same mistake, but knocks it sideways, almost loses it. Dan Blake tries to get on the power, and he will carry a bit more speed through the final couple of corners. Into the final couple of corners, though, comes Freddie Hewitt. He is about to see the checkered flag. He got his first ever victory a week ago, and he's going to go back-to-back with a victory here in race 1 to catapult himself into the championship equation going into the final race. Who will be second, though? It's side-by-side into the chicane. Dan Blake's on the inside. Remember, these two made contact a week ago, and they avoid similar last-lap dramas this time. Knox holds on for second. Dan Blake ends up in third. And, well, how significant could that prove to be come the end of the night? And look at that, for fourth, Kyle Power recovered and overhauled Ben Sharp, I believe, on the final lap. So Sharp ends up down in fifth. David Ward, with a brilliant drive, gained 26 positions. He was by far the biggest mover to get into sixth. Ben Bateman is seventh, Abby Pulling eighth, Ed Cooper ninth, and Alex Hall comes across the line to finish 10th. Now, where's Ben Leach? He is 13th already. Ben Leach has overtaken somebody else there, or someone else has dropped off the road. I'm not quite sure, but Ben Leach is going to come through, I believe, to seal 13th place. He comes out of the chicane, he crosses the start-finish line, and yes, 13th position for Ben Leach, which by my reckoning gives him 4 points, added to his bonus point for fastest lap. That's 5. And if I add that into the spreadsheet, that puts him on 233 points. So I have him provisionally 7 points behind Dan Blake going into the final race of the season, and just 2 points ahead of Freddie Hewitt in third. But I believe that Pip Hammond is going to try and give me an official points update between races. Pip, of course, has been busy racing in that race. He was racing well in the early stages before that spin. Hammond, in the end, where did he end up at the flag? 12th place, actually, so he did recover quite nicely. Still gained 5 positions from where he started, despite the spin he had at the chicane. So Pip Hammond has driven well. Lima Bet here coming through as well. He finishes down in 20th, 1 lap down. But Henry Church as well, he certainly made an impact, quite literally, on his debut in the championship. He will finish the race in 18th spot, having had that spin that collected Ben Leach. So Freddie Hewitt then is your race winner. Let's confirm the results then, first of all, before we get into the points. Freddie Hewitt with the win, Chris Knox second, and Dan Blake in third place. All three of them championship contenders, and I think mathematically at least, they're all three still in it going into the final race. Kyle Power is fourth, Ben Sharp is fifth, then David Ward sixth, then Bateman seventh, Pulling eighth, Ed Cooper ninth, and place for Alex Hall. Outside the top 10, but still within the points, crucially, Alex Rivette, Pip Hammond, and Ben Leach. How important could those 5 championship points he just scored prove to be in about 45 minutes' time? Ian Court was 14th, and the final point for 15th went to Michael Seal. Chris Nyland was the one who just missed out on points, only by a second in the end as well, in 16th place. Gavin Johnson down in 17th. Henry Church 18th. These are all drivers now that had issues earlier on. Henry Church never pitted for repairs, by the way. He carried on, but I think a slightly ill-handling car after that contact. Carl Jacqueline was 19th, and Lima Bet rounding out the top 20. Then it was Alex Rhodes, Kevin Boland, and Ian Crosby. Best and Charles Kellyman in 25th, Alan Toon and Jake Wood 27th. Not a headline-grabbing result. He was running in 17th or 18th earlier on, so he must have had a mishap somewhere. But still, generally speaking, kept his nose clean and finishes in 27th place. Kevin McGlone, the last finisher, in 28th, ahead of Mike Hart, Lee Vaughan, Sam Holman, Doug Hamilton, Adam Southgate, and Ian Best, all of whom failed to make the finish. So let's have a look at our podium drivers then, shall we? Yes, we've got our podium drivers here with us then. Let's drag in Freddie Hewitt if we can, and we'll have a chat with our race winner, a double race victory in a way, because he won the second race at Donington last week, and we kind of said that put him into championship contention. Now, Freddie, with another race win, well and truly in contention. I've got you about 9 points off the championship lead going into race 2. That was, in some ways, an even more important victory than last time.
Yeah, it was pretty helpful. Obviously, Ben going off in front of me was also very helpful. But we'll give it what it's got, and hope that things go our way.
It's fair to say, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but after qualifying, when it looked like no one could touch Ben Leach, I kind of half expected him to just get a good start and disappear off into the distance. Is that why you knew it was important to really apply the pressure at the start and maybe try and force a mistake out of him?
I was in the same boat as you, to be fair. I thought it was going to be a battle for second, let him get away and just see what could happen. But I knew I was quite strong on the colder tyres, so I just thought, if there's going to be a time to do it, it's got to be when I'm closest to him, and that's got to be the start.
It worked absolutely perfectly. And very briefly, your new teammate for tonight, came through into second place, Henry. He spun, and that's what kind of caught Ben Leach out. Obviously, I'm sure that wasn't intentional, but you must have had a bit of a smile on your face when you went onto the banking for the first time and saw what had happened behind you.
Yeah, obviously Henry had a very shocking qualifying. He didn't expect to be there, but it just helped a little bit. But it's obviously not what you want to. It's not what you ask for. But it's just one of them things that happens. You know, we're all racing. We're all trying to battle for position. So it's one of those.
Well, best of luck for race 2. I'm going to let you make sure you get logged into the server nice and promptly for race 2. It's going to be an absolute thriller. Best of luck for that final race of the season.
Cheers. Thank you.
You hear it then, your race winner for the second race in a row. And as I said, we've got him about 9 points away on the championship lead. We'll wait for that to be confirmed by Pip Hammond between races. But now let's have a word then with our second place finisher. And second place, after a ding-dong battle all race long, really, with Kyle Power and Dan Blake, goes the way of Chris Knox. Chris, a really good second place there. You couldn't hold on to second all the way through. Kyle was sort of passing you, and then you get him straight back again. And then eventually he made that mistake, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I had was on a bit of a mission on the first lap to get to the front, and I think I picked up a little bit of damage when I ran over the top of the chicane. But because it seemed like they were overtaking me on the straight a lot easier than what I was getting them back. But yeah, happy enough to finish second, keep Dan behind me, bring it into the last race, really.
Yeah, mathematically, I'm pretty sure you're still in contention. It's a bit of a long shot, though. So are you just going to go full for leather in this last race and just try and win it and see what happens?
Nothing to lose. Hopefully I can get a little bit nearer the front this time in qualifying, and hopefully not let Freddie run away with it.
Yes, well, indeed, you kind of allowed him to pull away, didn't you? But do you think if you could have stayed with him there in the early stages, you might have had something for him, or was it just he's that little bit quicker?
I'll be honest, I've not really done much testing this week, so I'm a little bit off the pace. So probably even if I got the break on him, I probably wouldn't have stayed with him, to be fair.
Well, second place is not bad for someone who's a little bit off the pace, Chris. So good luck for race 2. You're still in championship contention, so best of luck, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, give it a go.
Stuff. Chris Knox then, second place finish for him. That is the third time this year that he's finished in second place after a second place at Okayama and Laguna Seca. And now in third place, Dan Blake. Well, Dan, I said during the commentary just then that was kind of not very much of a Dan Blake-like performance, because you weren't just sending it into every corner. It really looked like you were thinking that through, especially through the first half of the race. No, you couldn't afford any trouble in that one, could you?
No, guys, obviously last week I had contact with Chris. There's been a couple of times where I got stuck in situations, and I've just thought tonight I just need to try and keep it clean. I saw Ben having his issue very early on, and then ahead of me, Chris Knox and Carl Power are fighting really, really hard, and I knew they were going to be either one of them go for contact. So I was just really trying to sort of make sure I stayed out of the problems, and I was happy to stay behind Chris in that one, because third place points is nothing to be sniffed at this stage of the season.
I mean, Ben has had 2 more wins than you this year, and yet you're still going to go into this final race ahead on points. So I think that is the right attitude to have, isn't it? If you can bag the points for third, and don't make any mistakes. Of course, it could now be in the second race that it comes down to a head-to-head fight, in which case, completely different game plan, isn't it? You've just got to go for it.
The second race, it's all bets off, and you'll see the Dan Blake that you are used to seeing, especially if I've got something to fight for. But it's going to be a really interesting race. I think it's one that's going to develop like this one did, really, throughout the sort of race, because I went into that race behind in the championship and come back in front of it. So it's going to be all about race management again, and it's going to be a really tense race. I think there's still 3-4 of us in contention. Freddie had another win as well, so he's lurking there in the background as well. So it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to it.
You'll be surprised to hear. Best of luck for the race number 2 then. Let's go see if you can retain that number 1 for a second season.
Thank you very much.
Stuff, Dan. So there you go then. The reigning champion, Dan Blake, is going to be the points leader going into race number 2. We're going to take a very short break so that we can break the abacus out and double check what the point situation is. But we definitely reckon Dan Blake is going to have about a 7-point cushion over Ben Leach in second place, with Freddie Hewitt very much still in contention as well. It's all to play for going into the final 30-minute race of the season, the second season of the PDC Racing League. going right down to the wire. You do not want to miss it. Welcome back, everybody. I told you it'd be a short break. We are ready to dive back into the action here at the Charlotte Roval with the feature race here in the PDC Racing League. And this is it, the championship decider. Someone will be crowned a champion in about 40 or so minutes time, because we have one more qualifying session and one more 30-minute race and three drivers almost together on points. We really couldn't have scripted it any better than this. It's setting up to be an even more thrilling climax to season 2. than we had in the first season of racing. We'll get into the points in a moment or two, but first of all, thanks to a few of our sponsors, some of the people that have really helped us to get the PDC Racing League going and help it grow to the amazing spectacle that it is now. It started off at the start of season 1 with a decent group of drivers, but certainly not the size of field that we've got now, or the strength in depth that we enjoy now. And we really couldn't have done that without some of our key sponsors. RS Components, we've seen them on several of the cars out there tonight. Gavin Johnson, Hammond's cars in particular, they're one of our main sponsors, a global supplier of products and service for an enormous range of industries, running a STEM project at the moment with PDC for 2020, in which they were planning at least to visit schools with the PDC built Porsche 924 to try and inspire and engage all of the youngsters to get involved with engineering or with mechanics or with racing perhaps as well. And RS Components do a lot nationally with STEM, including providing teaching materials and exhibits with their Titan 2 truck managed by James Howarth and Laura Giddings and Gary Rist as well. So thanks to RS Components for jumping on as one of our main sponsors here in the PDC Racing League, and we'll see their logo once again on the side of some of the very rapidly driven cars out there. As I say, Gavin Johnson and Pip Hammond regularly running those cars within the top 10. Thanks also to Pingin. They are bottomley distillers who produce Pingin and Rumcat and their new Golden Rum product as well. And I do like to say nice things about these people, not just because I'm a fan of their products, but because they're also producing hand sanitizers at the moment to help locally with the COVID-19 effort via their distilleries. So they're turning their hand to a slightly different craft, but arguably a more important one right now, which is keeping us safe and healthy. And they've been with the team for the last couple of years, and they very kindly jumped on board as a series sponsor for the PDC Racing League. Thanks also to SR Electrical, a wholesaler who specialise in electrical products. Steve Tuff is the owner, who's supported PDC since 2016, and they're good people, high level of service to the electrical industry. And I'm sure that Steve, as ever, is watching from home and enjoying the racing, and maybe he's picked a favourite to win the championship. Maybe you lot have picked a favourite as well. It really could still go any way of at least 3, maybe 4 drivers, and this is exactly what we and everyone behind the championship wanted to see. Nice close championship decider. And the final thank you has to go to PDC themselves, and electrical engineers who set up the race team for Pip and Gavin under Jason Wood, and of course his son Jake racing with us tonight. PDC back the championship. They've been long-time supporters of Gavin and Pip, and we thank them again for being the lead sponsor for the PDC Racing League. I hope they're all enjoying the product that they have been producing, because we definitely have been. Well, so that is the thanks to the sponsors done, and we hope to have you all on board again for a 3rd season maybe in the very near future. For the time being though, we need to turn our attention very much to the 2nd season, the final race of this 2nd season, which will decide a champion. I've had the points confirmed to me now. First of all, an apology from me. I said at the start of the night I can't count and I'm not good with numbers. I've been saying all season long I think that 2nd place on the grid is worth 8 points. It is not. It's worth 9 points. So that's the where an extra point goes for Freddie Hewitt, because he qualified 2nd for race 1, and that means he's actually on 232 points instead of 231 that I had him on. So the semi-official championship points going into the final race of the season. Dan Blake, your points leader, on 240, including his 2 dropped scores. He has an 8-point haul and a 12-point haul from race 2 at Laguna Seca and race 1 at Donington Park respectively. So they are his drop scores to fall back on should anything go wrong in this race. The fewest amount of points that he will score, the minimum amount of points he'll score, will be 12, because even if he didn't start this race, he'd score 12 points as he would start to count that Donington finish, which currently is being dropped. 2nd place in the championship, Ben Leach, 7 points behind him on 233. We don't have to worry about drop scores with Ben Leach. He's had 3 races in which he's not scored. The 2 races at Okayama, which he didn't even start, and the 2nd race at Alton Park, which he didn't finish. Ben Leach has a remarkable start to the season. He failed to score points in 3 of the first 4 races of the year. However, he then won the next 3 races on the bounce, both races at Laguna Seca and the first one at Donington, to go with a victory from Alton, which was the only one of those first 4 races he finished. But because he's had 3 non-point scores, he's dropping nothing. So his 233 total points are also his drop score, 7 points behind Dan Blake. And the third driver, realistically in contention, is the man we're on board with now, Freddie Hewitt, who is on 232 points. So he's only 1 point behind Leach. He's 8 points behind Dan Blake, so 8 points cover the top 3. His drop scores, he had a 10th place finish at Laguna Seca in race 1, that was worth 1 point. His other drop score was a 10-point haul from the very first race of the season at Okayama, so he, again, a bit like Dan Blake, if he didn't even start this race, he would be guaranteed to score 10 points. And obviously we're hoping to score more than 10 points, but if he didn't finish for whatever reason, that drop score would start to come into play. We're in a practice session now, which is about to complete. Qualifying is therefore going to get underway very shortly. The checkered flag is out for what it's worth. Fastest in the session, you'll be really surprised to hear, is Ben Leach with a 1:30.86, a ridiculously quick lap time. Freddie Hewitt second fastest though, so again, Freddie is positioning himself nicely now to apply the pressure to the points leader going into the final race of the season. Qualifying then about to get underway. We are watching the cars as they head out of the pit lane, and this might be a good opportunity actually to check in with our spotlight driver for the night. Every race meeting are going to start putting one driver under the spotlight, one of the long-time members of the PDC Racing League. And tonight's driver is a driver we've mentioned quite a lot already tonight, Ben Sharp. There he is in the Alpha Live Yearone Racing TV car, heading out of the pit lane, car 124. Already got himself a top 5 finish tonight, and Ben Sharp is one of the fastest racers in the PDC Racing League. Also, though, a very successful real-world racing driver, running own team, Ben Sharp Racing, a professional race car preparation business as well, based near Silverstone, and it's that company that he's really keen to promote tonight, as well as his own driving talent, but he is really proud of the work that he and his family-run company do. They offer rebuilds, preparation and vehicle setup, and BSR has begun offering a track day buddy service to provide mechanical support, as well as coaching and data analysis to drivers all over the country who are returning to the circuits of the UK. You know, it's been a very long off-season, a much longer off-season than we planned for obvious reasons, and so many racing drivers, particularly at club level, may be feeling a bit more race rusty than usual as we go into the new season. So Ben Sharp Racing offers this track day buddy system, basically, where they offer you some coaching and data analysis on track days before you actually jump in the first round of your new championship. You can head over to their website, or indeed Ben Sharp Racing Facebook page. So if you head over to Facebook, search for Ben Sharp Racing or BSR, then you can find information on prices and all of the details on how to book Ben's expertise, and gives you a day's assistance from a professional racing driver who can offer both driving and mechanical support, both equally important, of course, and it can be maybe some of the smartest money that any driver can spend in the quest for lap times, especially in the current situation. We haven't, many racing drivers have not turned a wheel on a racetrack since October, November last year. So it's been a very long off season, and maybe Ben could be your ticket to the front of the grid again in your new season of racing. So get in touch with Ben, see if he can help you with anything car or track related. He's demonstrating some of his car control skills, as we've been talking about what a good driver he is. He's showing us all now as he goes through onto a flying lap in the qualifying session here, sliding the car around. The early lap times, though, already are starting to come in, and we've had 1:39s for both Dan Blake and Ben Sharp. So Ben Sharp is second fastest in the qualifying session as of now, behind Ad, who is championship leader going into the final race. Of course, they are teammates. They're both running the same livery. They both run for Yearone Racing TV. And so it could be that Ben Sharp might be able to assist Dan Blake. Now, Dan Blake has just headed into the pit lane. Interestingly, he did one flying lap, which was good enough for pole position, and then headed back into the pits. He's back on track again now. It's Dan, but that's an interesting tactic. He's got back on track just in time, because Ben Leach now sets the first meaningful lap time, 1:32.1. He goes to pole. Kyle Power goes second. Adam Southgate third, but he's immediately beaten by Alex Hall, who makes a welcome return to the front end of the grid. Gavin Johnson goes 5th, Alex Rhodes goes 6th, so those early lap times were out laps from the pit lane rather than full flying laps, so it turned out. We know that a really fast lap around this place is in the 1 minute 30s, maybe a low 1 minute 31. Fastest lap at the moment for Ben Leach, 1:32.1, so he's got a little bit more time than he can find on cold tyres. Interesting what Freddie Hewitt said to us as well in his podium interview after race number 1. He knew that he would be quicker than Ben Leach on cold tyres, and that's something that comes from racing with Ben a few times this year, and this is why it's really important to be mixing it with the front runners at every opportunity you have, because otherwise you're never going to learn where you're faster than them or where maybe they're faster than you. So Freddie knew that he was good on cold tyres. Ben Leach has taken a bit of time to get the tyres up to temperature in this session, but he's right on it now as they come out of the chicane up to 90 miles an hour. It'll be well over 100 miles an hour by the time he gets to the chicane, and this could well be a further improvement. Church has gone second, by the way, so that's Freddie Hewitt's teammate, but he's a full second behind him. There is Henry in the Fast R liveried car, purple and blue car, second fastest right now. Ben Leach comes out of the final chicane, comes across the start-finish line, and will he improve again? Of course he does. 1:31.7. He's 1.3 seconds quicker now than anybody else. Mike Hart goes into third place on a 1:33.1, 0.4 seconds off pole position. There he goes in the Union Flag liveried car, ahead of one of the RS Components liveried machines. That's car number 13, Ian Best, who currently rounds out the top 10. So both of these drivers having decent runs so far in qualifying. Now, what of Freddie Hewitt and Dan Blake, I hear you ask? Well, Dan Blake has still not completed a proper flying lap, so he's down in 18th position at the moment. Freddie Hewitt, meanwhile, is even further back in 20th, so they both get to get fully up to speed, I think it's fair to say. We have had some more improvements towards the front, though. Alex Hall goes second now, and then immediately heads for the pit lane. Pip Hammond has gone third, so Pip Hammond gets himself onto the inside of row number 2. That's a good effort from him. There's Alex Hall in the pit lane in car number 64. He's one of the only drivers in the pits right now, as you can see. So, yeah, we really need to watch those championship contenders, Dan Blake and Freddie Hewitt. They need to try and get themselves towards the front of the grid. Dan Blake is running ahead of Freddie on the track, so Dan Blake will finish a lap before Freddie does. He's heading into the final section of the track now, is Dan. So as we follow Pip Hammond through the banking, we'll wait and see what sort of lap times those that are fighting for championships can do. Leach is about to cross the line, and I believe he's going quicker again on this lap. We'll see what the time is then. He'll come through, and you can only laugh, really, can't you? 1:31.25. He's a second and a half quicker than anybody else. Dan Blake goes 8th place. That is an improvement, at least. Mike Hart goes into 3rd. That was a good lap for Mike Hart as well. What about Freddie Hewitt? Hewitt is, I think, about to end the lap as well. Yeah, he's coming out to the final corner now, Freddie Hewitt. I can see in the distance. So Freddie Hewitt comes across the line, and he has improved, I think, into... Where's he gone on my timing screen? Freddie Hewitt. No, 23rd still. Excuse me, he's not quite at the end yet. Here he comes into the chicane. Another one of the Team Cheetah cars I must have seen in the distance. Through the chicane he goes. And David Ward, I think that was, having a huge spin in front of him. It goes 10th. So Freddie Hewitt goes 10th. Dan Blake has ended up... Oh, Ben Sharp goes 2nd. That was a really good improvement there for Ben Sharp into P2. He's still 1.4 seconds off pole position, but Sharp is into 2nd place at the moment. It's Dan Blake. That's the question I was asking myself. So he's 10th as well. So 10th place for Blake, 12th place for Freddie Hewitt, but Ben Leach is on pole. They both need to find an extra... Well, quite a large chunk of time. Dan Blake is 2.3 seconds off pole position, and Freddie Hewitt's 2.4 seconds off pole. Here comes Blake out of the chicane. We've got a few minutes still to go in this extended 10-minute qualifying session. They've given the drivers a bit longer tonight to get a lap time in, just to make sure that everyone gets a clean lap in, but especially those that are fighting for the top honours in the championship. Then into the final chicane. His teammate Ben Sharp has just gone 2nd. It's an all Ben front row at the moment. Can Dan Blake split them or even beat them? Crosses the line. Proves, but only goes to 10th place. Mike Hart, though, has split up that front row. Mike Hart, again improving, going quicker every lap. And as I said, we saw him go quite well at Donington Park last time out. I don't recall he got the results maybe that he should have done, Mike Hart, but he definitely was one of the pace setters at Donington. He had a best result in race 2. He scored 14 points in race number 2 for finishing just towards the back end of the top 10. But Mike is absolutely on a mission tonight, second quickest right now. What's Freddie Hewitt doing? He's going second fastest. That's the answer. Freddie Hewitt goes to the front row of the grid. That is a lot more like it. He's 9.5 tenths behind Ben Leach, but he is at least on the front row. And as we saw in race 1, you don't have to be as quick as Ben Leach. You just have to put yourself on the front row with him and then try to outrace him, which is what Freddie Hewitt did in the first less than half a lap in race 1. He's pushing so hard there, right out to the edge of the track. Chris Knox is sideways as well going into turn number 1. Chris Knox has just finished a lap, down in 13th place, so only 1 place behind Dan Blake, but neither driver is really finding the pace you would expect from this session. Blake is about 3/4 of the way around his next lap. Here he comes through turns 3 and 4 of the banking. No traffic in front of him. Let's hope it was a clean lap up until this point without any map markers getting in the way. It has been a clean lap, but it's not really that quick. A couple of green sectors, but no purple sectors so far for Dan Blake, which means he's not going as fast as Ben Leach. But then who is? Crosses the line, and as Abby Pulling goes third, Blake goes ninth. So Dan Blake does improve. Again, only just within the top 10. That's only worth 2 points as well, critically, whereas Ben Leach is scoring 10. So Dan Blake came into the race 7 points clear of Leach and would lose the championship lead based upon these provisional grid positions by a single point. He would be a point behind Leach going into the race simply as a result of the qualifying results. So this is before we even get into the 30 minutes of racing. This is how important these qualifying standings have been. The fact that quite a lot of points are on offer throughout the season. There are a full 10 qualifying sessions throughout the seasons. That's 100 championship points available. And Ben Leach, coming into this weekend, had only scored 1 more point than Dan Blake in the races, but he'd scored 8 more points than Blake in qualifying. That's where the advantage had come from. And again, that continues here at the Charlotte Roval. So out onto the back straight he goes. Now Ben Leach has pitted. He's not going to improve. But Dan Blake had traffic, I think, there. Now, did he get held up or did the traffic just bail out? I couldn't tell whether it was because the traffic braked late or whether Dan Blake braked really early, but he possibly got held up. Abby Pulling, I believe it was, who was third a second ago. We've had further improvements. Now Gavin Johnson's gone third, Ian Crosby's gone fourth, and Mike Hart is fifth. The checkered flag is out in the session now as well, so this will be the final opportunity to improve. More traffic in front there. That's Pulling again, and the number 7 car, I think, staying out of the way. Blake comes out of the chicane, then he's all the way down in 13th place. He's not going to score any points at the moment, but he improves at the death to go 6th quickest. It's not great, but it's better than it was looking at any point until then. And Dan Blake will score some championship points. Chris Knox crosses the line as well. He will round the session out a long way back down in 16th. Realistically, then, it could be that his championship hopes are over. And with Knox as though, Ben Leach is going to double up on pole positions. That is his 5th pole position of the season so far. He scored 76 points this year, just in qualifying. Freddie Hewitt gets second, which is, again, exactly the same result as in race 1, another 9 points for him. And Dan Blake ends up down in 6th position, which is worth just the 5 points. So if I add them all into the spreadsheet, there are going to be 3 points in it, but Blake, critically, because of that late improvement, will maintain the points lead, but only just from Ben Leach, who so far is looking pretty unstoppable. Well, that was only qualifying. How exciting was that? And now we've got a 30-minute race to come, and it is going to be the number 50 car. You can see on the timing tower there, number 50 at the top. That's just the way Ben Leach likes it. And let's have a look then, shall we, a moment or two, at how the grid will line up for the final race of what has been a completely unpredictable season. I still don't know who's going to win the championship going into the very final race of the year. Here we go then. Leach on pole, Hewitt second. The same front row as we had for race 1, and we all know how that ended up with Hewitt getting the win and Leach going off the track on lap 1. Gavin Johnson and Ian Crosby share 0-2 ahead of Mike Hart. Another good result there in qualifying for him. And Dan Blake, the points leader, down in 6th. Abby Pulling is 7th with David Ward for company on row 4. Ben Sharp and Alex Hall share the 5th row. Then Pip Hammond and Carl Jacquelet just outside the top 10 on row number 6. Then it's Ed Cooper and Henry Church, not quite as strong in qualifying this time for Henry, but still top half of the field, ahead of Kyle Power and Chris Knox. Adam Southgate and Ben Bester on row 9, then Sam Holman and Alex Rhodes to round out the top 20. Charles Kellyman and Ben Best are next, ahead of Michael Seal and Alex Rivette. Then Doug Hamilton and Lima Bett on the 13th row, ahead of Jake Wood, 27th. I'm pretty sure that's where he finished the first race as well, so he's been nothing if not consistent tonight, ahead of Alan Toon on the 14th row. Then it's Kevin Boland, Chris Nyland, Ben Bateman, Lee Ward, in court has Kevin McGlone for company, the back row of the grid. So, provisionally, 3 points is the advantage for Dan Blake. 246 points for him, 243 for Ben Leach, and Freddie Hewitt on 241. There are 5 points between the top 3 drivers, and they all start towards the front of the grid. And I'm delighted to say that Pip Hammond has just confirmed that possibly for the first time in my life I've got the maths right. So that is how the points look going into the race. But there is a lot that can play out here. 30 minutes, it may be the longer race, but this tends actually to be the more exciting one. And it's still worth those 35 championship points for a victory. It's a 7-point difference between first and second. So between those 3, Dan Blake, Ben Leach and Freddie Hewitt, it is winner takes all. If any one of those 3 drivers wins this race, they will be champion regardless where the others end up. Here we go then. Place your bets, everybody. The championship decider from the Charlotte Roval gets underway with a bit of creeping from David Ward, and now the lights are out. Away they go. It's a good start made again by Ben Leach from pole position, but Freddie Hewitt once more is going with him. He will immediately try to apply the pressure and force a mistake out of Ben Leach on cold tyres. It's almost an action replay between the two of them of the first race start. Hewitt is up the inside and he goes through. Freddie Hewitt into the race lead into turn number 2. He didn't need to force the mistake out of Ben Leach. He was just quicker off the first corner, and he's got the lead away. That means that if things finished as they are now, he'd be champion, but thankfully there's still another 29.5 minutes before we crown anybody the champion. Lots can change in that time. Dan Blake held position in 6th place, but arguably hasn't really had the pace of the other 2 so far tonight, so he's going to have to get his elbows out here before they start escaping at the front. I'm almost certain we'll see a penalty for David Ward because of his quite blatant creeping before the lights went out. Mike Hart there having a look around the outside of Ian Crosby, who suddenly seemed to disappear. I think he's disconnected as they went out onto the banking, and that gives Dan Blake a chance to get up the inside of Mike Hart now and go into 4th position. So Dan Blake has now picked up 2 positions from where he started. That's Abby Pulling just behind them in the rat car. I think she told us it was. It's supposed to be a rat that is painted onto that particular car. Mike Hart back up the inside of Dan Blake though. Oh, and Abby Pulling as well. So Dan Blake maybe wasn't expecting that, but Mike Hart went through, then overshot, and Pulling ends up getting past both of them in one fell swoop. And Blake is all the way back down to 6th again now. So that didn't really work out too well, did it? Back at the front though, nose to tail between the top 2 in the championship. It's winner takes all, remember, between these 2. Whoever finishes in front, if they finish first and second that is, will be the champion. Hewitt will lead the opening lap, but Ben Leach is well and truly going with him as they head into turn number 1 for the second time of asking. Ben Leach is the quicker, there's no doubt about that. Even Freddie Hewitt agreed with me after race 1. Leach has got the outright pace tonight, but Freddie Hewitt has the track position, and that is worth quite a lot here at the Charlotte Roval. It's not the easiest of circuits to overtake at. There are a couple of clear overtaking opportunities. Turn 1 is one of them. The back straight and the final chicane is another one. They're all quite easy to defend through though, so as long as Freddie Hewitt watches his mirrors and doesn't make a mistake, which I know I'm making sound a lot easier than it actually is, but if he doesn't make a mistake, he has every chance of keeping Leach at bay here. We're about to go out onto the banking again. They're pulling away from everybody else. 2.2 seconds clear of Gavin Johnson right now. So Leach can kind of afford to pick his moments here. He doesn't need to go for a kamikaze move on the second lap of the race that could take them both off the track and hand the championship to Dan Blake, but he has got to run through the banking here off turn number 2 of the Charlotte Oval and onto the brakes. But we saw in race 1, this outside pass into the chicane is fraught with danger. Hewitt will brake as late as he dares. He gets into the corner first. Leach tries to carry more speed out of it though, which he might just be able to do. Hewitt's got the inside line though and maintains the race lead once again. It's going to be a real game of cat and mouse between these two, I think. Every time Leach pulls out to make a pass, Hewitt has to try and block him and get into the next corner first. As long as you can get to the apex and stop the car, he should be okay, but Leach has got to run this time around the outside. He's got the inside line into the final chicane, but that's actually not really the preferred line. You need to carry the speed through there, and you can only do that from the outside line, the line that Freddie Hewitt was occupying. So he holds on to the race lead once again and sets the fastest lap of the race, although he's now been, he still has the fastest lap, 1:33.16. That could also be significant at the end of the race. Blake then through, still in 6th position. Mike Hart in front of him, and they are already a good few seconds away from the race leader, about 4.6 seconds off the lead right now. So Dan Blake is not only a few positions behind these two, but he's actually a good few seconds back already, and we've only completed the first 2 laps of racing. Back through the infield section again, it's pretty much single file through here, quite hard to overtake. This is interesting. Ben Leach, I believe, just hit the wall. I was about to say what's interesting is that they're about to catch Henry Church, Freddie Hewitt's teammate, to put a lap on him, but then Ben Leach just made a small mistake, tagged the wall. We'll try and pull out a replay of that if we can, because I have to say I was watching the timing screen at the time. I didn't notice it happen, but hopefully he's got away without any damage from that. So they get through the chicane though first, because Ben Leach is going for it on the inside. Oh, Ben Leach has gone off. I do not believe it. Another mistake from Ben Leach. He lost the rear of the car trying to get past Freddie Hewitt, and has he just thrown away the championship? Rejoins and gets collected by Carl Jacquelet. That will do more damage to Ben Leach's car, and I have to say that looked, well, let's see. Late on the brakes, he's in the tow. Was he caught out by Hewitt braking too early? It didn't look like Hewitt braked too early. And then this was a bit silly, really. He was eager to get back on the road and ended up hitting Jacquelet. Look how far back he is, doing 120 miles an hour. I think he just outbraked himself, hit the curb. He might have got away with it if the sausage curb hadn't been there, but it was. And then look at this. He tries to get back on the track, tries to find a gap, and bang, there goes Carl Jacquelet. And that will have done quite a bit of damage to Ben Leach's car. Well, oh well, I said this was going to keep on twisting and turning throughout the race. Already, we have had our first sting in the tail, maybe, for arguably the championship favourite, really. I said that he could take his time, he didn't need to take any risks, and whether it was a mistake or a risk, I don't know. We'll find out after the race, I'm sure, but it has absolutely thrown the cat among the pigeons for our championship battle. The new order then, Freddie Hewitt leads by 4.8 seconds now over Abby pulling in second. We're following her in the brown wrapped car, going out onto the banking again for the fourth time. Dan Blake is into third position. So Dan Blake is, he came into this race, remember, 5 points ahead of Hewitt. So if Hewitt wins, he still would not be the champion, even if he finishes in second place. So as we stand right now, Freddie Hewitt would get the 35 points for the win. Dan Blake is in third behind him. There's contact. Around goes Pip Hammond. And I think that was Ben Sharp involved with all of that as well. Oh, Gavin Johnson, sorry, it's the other RS Components car. So Gavin Johnson with a spin, and he gets overtaken by another one of his teammates. Let's see what happened then. Get back to the calculator in a moment. Ben Sharp goes to the inside. Mike Hart goes to the outside. They're three wide. Was there contact? Ooh, hard to tell. Maybe not. Maybe it was Netco. Maybe he just lost the rear, but I didn't see any contact on my screen. Critically, that's another place gained for Ben Sharp then. That, again, could prove significant. There's Gavin Johnson. He's rejoined the track in ninth place. Gets sideways again in front of the lapped Henry Church. Well, not lose many positions, but it loses some serious speed. And he is now going to lose some places, I think, going into turn number one. Out of turn one goes Ben Leach. Ben Leach has just moved himself back into seventh position. The next car in front of him is Ben Sharp, the teammate. In fact, he's got two Gear 1 racing drivers in front of him now, Ben Sharp and Carl Jacquelet, both of whom are teammates to Dan Blake. So they're not going to make life easy here for Ben Leach under any circumstances. As we stand, Hewitt leads the way. Blake in third would score 25 points, the same as in race one, and that would mean that Hewitt would take the championship by 5 points. So yeah, even if Blake were to get into second place, that wouldn't be enough. It is winner takes all between all three of them. It makes maths actually quite simple, really. Leach is the one with the work to do now, though. He's down in seventh place. He's about 11 seconds off the lead. With a healthy car, he's capable of lapping about a second a lap quicker than anybody else. We've seen that all night so far through practice and qualifying. Trouble is, he doesn't have a healthy car. He's got a damaged rear wing, presumably from that first bit of contact that Graham Sessford, our producer, spotted just before he went off the road. And then he's got quite a bit of front-end damage from the contact with Carl Jacquelet after the spin. He'll be kicking himself for that, because had he just waited and let Jacquelet go, he'd have rejoined without too much damage, but that will definitely be slowing him down. We need to watch the lap times with interest. He goes through the final chicane now, closing in on Ben Sharp and Carl Jacquelet in front of him, and he's going to have a dive here, surely, into turn one up the inside of Sharp. Sharp doesn't cover the inside line, and through will go Ben Leach. So that's another place gain. That will be sixth place. Hasn't actually finished the move yet, though. Ben Sharp is trying to hang with him on the outside of turn two to get the inside for turn three, which he's got. Look at the time it's losing them. Kyle Power has caught them now, but Carl Jacquelet is escaping up the road. Ben Leach needs to try and get on with this. We're already nearly a third of the way through the race. He's got the inside line this time in towards turn number 5, and I think he might be about to go through. Can Ben Sharp hang tough on the dirty side of the road? You can carry more momentum around there, but there's less grip out on the marbles. They almost touch, and now he's got the inside line again. So Ben Leach just can't complete this pass, and I think he's definitely being held up here by the damage. He can't carry the same sort of speed into the corners on the tighter inside line that he would be able to with a healthy car. And so as a result, he is struggling to actually finish this pass. He's in the slipstream again now, heading down into the corner that was his downfall a couple of laps ago. The back straight chicane, another really tricky part of the circuit. In fairness, you're braking on a banked bit of racetrack. That back straight has some banking in it, and then you come off the banking into the flat chicane. Very easy to lose the rear of the car. None of them do on this occasion, but Ben Leach is able to get through. Back in the tow again. He tried this move on Freddie Hewitt about a lap or so before his spin, around the outside through the banking at turn 4 of the oval to get the inside line for the chicane. He's just got to send it here. Yeah, gets to the apex first. That's how to do it. You've just got to carry as much speed in. Don't worry too much about the exit speed. Just get to the corner first. Ben Leach into 6th, Dan Blake is 3rd, but Freddie Hewitt is 5 seconds clear of everybody else in the lead. He's also got the fastest lap, 1:31.78 that he set last time around. No one else has got into the 31s in this race, so Freddie Hewitt right now would take the maximum points. And don't forget, he's on this real winning streak, Freddie Hewitt. It took him a while, the best part of 2 seasons, to get his first race victory. And now, like buses, they keep on coming. He had a win at Donington. He won the first race tonight, and he could double up and become only the second person this season to win 2 races at the same track. 3 guesses who the other one was. It was his championship rival, Ben Leach. But Ben is not going to win. Certainly not going to win 2 races tonight, but he might not even have a chance to contend for the victory in either of them, because he had that early spin in race 1. Race 2, another early spin whilst challenging for the lead, and I'm sure that he's going to regret that. If we speak to him after the race, we'll try and speak to all 3 of our championship challengers if we can after this second race, because it would be interesting to get their thoughts. I'm sure he'll be kicking himself for the spin, because he didn't really have to take those sort of risks. He could probably have afforded to just sit back and let it all unfold in front of him. He had a full 30 minutes to try and race Freddie Hewitt, and instead made a mistake and went off within the first 10 minutes of the race. There's Abby Pulling, meanwhile. She got her first podium at Donington Park a week ago, and she, again, like buses, got a second one again just a few moments later with a win, with her 3rd place in race 2 as well. But I don't think she's ever had a second place finish. I think they were her best finishes in her PDC racing career. So Abby Pulling, who came into the final night 15th in points. She hadn't scored that many points in earlier races, but she, again, like Freddie Hewitt, has been coming on stronger in the second half of the season, getting more and more used to iRacing as well. She was definitely a driver who hadn't really got a huge amount of iRacing experience before the enforced lockdown that we've all been put under for the last few months. And so Abby, definitely a driver that we're seeing becoming more of a factor as we go on, and moving into season 3, which we're hoping to get underway in the very near future. Abby should be a championship contender if she can just avoid some of the contact and collisions that she's been a part of at times earlier on in the season, not necessarily of her own making. Oh, that one was, though. That was a mistake. Too much speed through the chicane, and she clobbered the barrier. Now, that could be significant, because that's going to start losing her time. She had been matching the race leader pretty much, but she won't be anymore, because she's definitely damaged the car, and it could allow this man, Dan Blake, to close in. But as we've laboured the point already, second place wouldn't be enough for Dan, because Freddie Hewitt is on course for his 3rd victory in a row, and that means that only way Blake can beat him in the championship is to beat him in the race. This is a longer race, though, so all is not lost yet for Dan Blake, or indeed Ben Leach, who is continuing to catch Carl Jacquelet in their fight for 5th position, only a second between them. Now there is Ben just charging his way through the first corner. He's just set the fastest lap as well. That's important. So 1:31.71 is about 700ths of a second quicker than Freddie Hewitt went a few laps ago. So that's a bonus point in the bank for him. 6th place at the moment anyway is Ben Leach. Won't make any difference to the championship. It means he'll be on 19 points now instead of 18. He'd be on 262. It's still winner takes all, but the difference might be that if Leach were to finish 2nd in the race with fastest lap, I'm not quite sure what the maths would mean then. Let's see. We've got a bit of time, I suppose, before something else kicks off to give it a go. So if he were to finish in 2nd with the fastest lap, Ben Leach would score 29 points. And no, that wouldn't make a difference either. So actually, the fastest lap point makes not the slightest bit of difference to Ben Leach's championship. He still needs to win the race, and right now he's struggling to take 5th place away from Carl Jacquelet. He's going to get a good run, though, out of the chicane here, I think. Yes, he does. Looks to the outside again. Now, this is how he got past Ben Sharp a few laps ago, who, incidentally, has fallen down to 9th now. Carl Power has got past him in the last lap or so. Leach pulling to the outside, but he doesn't have the straight line speed because of that aerodynamic damage that he's got. He's struggling to execute the pass, and as he goes to the outside into the chicane, he's just again got to try and send it, and Jacqueline, in fairness, leaves him room, just enough room, almost ran into the back of him through the second part of the chicane. That will have been a very, very risky moment there for Leach again. That is a teammate to Dan Blake. All this mention of teammates, though, I'm not suggesting that they're going to take out Dan's championship rivals, the same as the other Team Cheetah drivers wouldn't intentionally take out Freddie Hewitt's championship rivals, but they're not going to make it easy. If they're going to defend a little bit against anybody else, they'll defend a lot against someone like Ben Sharp, because they know that the more progress he makes, the more pressure that puts their teammates under. For what it's worth at the moment, it makes little difference to Dan Blake, because he's actually more preoccupied with holding on to 3rd position. He's nearly 10 seconds off the race lead now, Dan Blake. He is 4.1 seconds behind Abby Pulling and not catching her, despite that contact she had with the concrete wall a little while ago. So, Ben Sharp's to set the fastest lap as well. Yeah, well spotted, Graham. So 131.48 for Ben Sharp. That is 7th. So that well and truly takes the 60 lap fastest lap point out of the equation. And Jacqueline is having another go in the background at Ben Leach. So Leach is not being able to pull away from Jacqueline here. Jacqueline hadn't gone through, but he did draw alongside. That will help, though. He ran wide, made a real mess of the exit of the chicane, and that definitely gives Ben Leach a little bit more breathing room. The point I was starting to make a lap or so ago was that this is not necessarily all over for people like Dan Blake or Ben Leach, because this is a longer race. A lot of other factors come into play that weren't really an issue in race 1. Traffic is definitely one of those. They lapped a few cars in race 1, but they're going to lap a lot more cars in race 2 because the race is 10 minutes longer. So there's a good chance that they're going to start getting held up by some back markers. That could affect the lead margin Freddie Hewitt has. Could maybe lead to a tangle with a back marker for any one of them. The other thing is tyre wear. Tyres don't wear that much because they all run on grooved tyres as opposed to slick racing tyres, but that extra 10 minutes can have an effect on your grip levels and therefore your pace in the final third of the race, especially around a track like this. It is quite hard on the tyres, the Charlotte Roval, because you've got a lot of tight corners where you're accelerating from low speed. That spins up the rear wheels and wears out the rears. You've also got a lot of these long, quite high or medium speed corners which wear out the front tyres as well. So there's definitely a few tyre concerns out there. So what I'm saying is Freddie Hewitt may be 5.5 seconds up on everybody else at the moment, but is he taking too much life out of his tyres? That's the question. It's one of his Team Cheetah teammates, Michael Seal. We're just cycling through the field here. He's just running down in 11th place at the moment, Michael Seal. Good to give these midfield drivers a bit of a moment in the sun, so to speak, because we've quite rightly been focusing a lot tonight on the championship battle. As that has calmed down momentarily, we can check in on some of these other drivers. Ian Best here, he's picked up 6 positions from where he started. Gavin Johnson, though, has lost 10 after that spin or half spin that he had down here at the chicane. I think he's been in the wars again, though, since then. He's got a bit of damage to front and rear of that car, and in fact, he might be heading for the pit lane. He's just taking a slightly tighter line than usual through the banking there, down on the apron momentarily. So as he comes out of the final corner, we are about to head towards 2/3 race distance here. David Ward was mathematically in championship contention coming into tonight. He's not had a night to remember, though, unfortunately, has he? He finished some way down the field in race number 1. David Ward was not in the... in fact, he was 6th place in race 1. He qualified badly for race 1, but he did actually race quite well. This time around, struggling to make the same sort of progress. He's 14th at the moment. Charles Kellyman there, rounding out the top 15. He would be the final point scorer as things stand. And Charles Kellyman in the 67 car works his way through the infield. Ed Cooper is next. He's driving the number 16 car. Ed, a multiple race winner in the Classic Stock Hatch Championship in his now quite famous Vauxhall Over GSI. 14 seasons he's been competing in the Classic Stock Hatch Championship for those front-wheel drive retro hot hatches. It's a little bit different, it's fair to say. Best next in line. He's running in 17th place in the 303 car, who is an instrumentation and monitoring engineer, I'm told, for CMCS Limited. Doesn't actually have any formal race experience. Some inter-university karting, I believe, being his the extent of his racing career up until this point. So another driver that's using iRacing maybe to sharpen up his skills before possibly making an appearance in the real world. He's had some good results this year, as Ben as well at times, or at least some good pace. Kevin McGlone in the number 7 car, and known as Irish, apparently. And I'll let you guess why people call him Irish. But Kevin McGlone, a real character, and running a little further down the order than he'd like, but he's kind of been there or thereabouts, just on the fringes of the points, really, all season long. So Kevin McGlone, another good driver to have on board with the PDC Racing League. As he heads through the chicane, Ben Leach, I can tell you, has just set the fastest lap, but other than that, not much changing at the front. The lead gap is coming down. Abby Pulling is a bit quicker than Hewitt at the moment. There we see Pip Hammond going out of the back straight chicane, again having a difficult day, down in 19th. Alex Rhodes will round out the top 20, and 21st place at the moment belongs to Jake Woods. So again, keeping his head down, staying out of trouble is Jake. There he goes. Oh, well, I say staying out of trouble, he's lost his front wing, but the rear of the car looks absolutely fine. So I expect he'll continue to push on to see whether or not he can catch Alex Rhodes. And he's got Adam Southgate chasing him down behind in 22nd, but Adam's going quite a bit quicker than the cars in front. And you can see why. He's really hustling the car through the chicane, but he is 20 seconds behind Jake at the moment, so that position's not going to change anytime soon. What next in the number 77 car? That's an appropriate livery for an oval, isn't it? That's the Target Chip Ganassi Racing inspired livery on the number 77 car. Kind of colour scheme we'd have seen competing at races like the Indy 500 over the years. And then Henry Church is next in 25th. And Henry, I think, has got a lap down, because that is Abby Pulling behind him, the second place driver. 5.6 seconds behind Freddie Hewitt, 4 seconds ahead of Dan Blake. And Ben Leach is now 4th. And Lee Vaughan is off in 27th, but Ben Leach has just moved into 4th place. He's ahead of Mike Hart now, so I think Hart must have had a moment somewhere, because Ben Leach was 5th, I'm pretty sure, the last time we saw him, so he's in 4th, but he's 4 seconds behind Dan Blake. Toon here running in 29th position, and is he the last of the drivers still running? I think he might be. Doug Hamilton and I know Doug Hamilton and Chris Nyland, I think, are still... No, they're not circulating. So Toon is the last car still going in 29th. We've lost Ian Crosby, Ben Bateman, Sam Holman, Chris Nyland, Hamilton. Then 5 drivers out of the race so far. Now, this is the fight for 3rd, and Ben Leach is making progress here. He's caught Dan Blake now, so guess if nothing else, if neither of these 2 drivers can win the championship, they both want to try and finish ahead of the other for 2nd place in the championship, and they're going to go side by side for 3rd position now into the chicane. Ben Leach goes to the outside. He's got the inside into the right-hander, hits the curb, gets sideways, goes through. 3rd place then now belongs to Ben Leach, the man who led the championship at Donington Park a week ago, now on course then for 25 championship points, which would leave him on 268 points, still 8 points short of Freddie Hewitt's championship march. Interestingly, that pass on Dan Blake, though, I'm pretty sure gives him 2nd place in the championship, because Blake is now down on 22 points. Oh, they'd be level. As it stands, Leach and Blake would be level on points for 2nd place by my calculations. So if Leach can gain 1 more spot, he would take 2nd place, although he's got more wins than Blake, so he would probably take it on count back anyway. But right now, that's the last thing on Ben Leach's mind. He's just got eyes for the front. He wants to try and catch the leader. It's just not happening there. I don't think he's going to catch Freddie Hewitt. This lead gap, though, is coming down. So this is what I was saying. This is a longer race. It's harder to keep tyres under you. It's harder to keep concentration. You're going to encounter more lap traffic. And Freddie Hewitt is a little bit younger than the drivers that he's fighting for here as well. He's got less racing experience in iRacing or indeed in the real world. So is that starting to come into play? The gap, I told you a lap or so ago, he was 5 seconds ahead of Abby Pulling in 2nd place. He's now 2.5 seconds ahead. So Pulling, you can see in the background, is chasing him down. And Abby won't really care that Freddie Hewitt's fighting for a championship here, because she wants her first ever victory. She's had her first podiums. Now she wants to get a race victory. She's already on course for her best ever finish in the PDC Racing League with 2nd place, but she wants the race win. She is continuing to chase him down. Interestingly, Abby just set a personal best lap, a 131.52, which was a full second and a bit, 1.1 seconds actually, quicker than the leader. And she is the only driver inside the top 10 who is still improving. So she's really saved her tyres. She's got some good speed underneath her, and I think she could catch Freddie Hewitt here. That in and of itself, I don't think would be the end of the world, would it? Let's have a look. If Hewitt were to finish second and get 28 points instead of 35, he would win the championship by 1 point if he finishes second. At the moment, he's in the lead, but if Abby Pulling can get past him, that really puts the cat among the pigeons. He could not afford to lose any more positions. And of course, Ben Leach is 8.4 seconds back, so if he's done the math, then he would probably do well to just let Pulling go, but there's very little chance that he's been able to work the maths out. So I think he's probably going to fight this, and if he does start fighting, Ben Leach might be able to catch the pair of them. This ain't over, folks. Don't go anywhere, because with about 5 minutes of racing left in the season, it is still all to play for, and it could be a driver who is not in the championship battle who actually has the final say here. Abby Pulling coming ever closer now to the race leader. The gap is down to 1.8 seconds at the end of the 16th lap of racing. We still have time. There was traffic ahead for Freddie Hewitt as well. Look, 2 cars battling for position in front of him, and that's the worst thing that he could see, because those 2 drivers are not going to be ready for him. They're not going to be watching him. Dan Blake has just set the fastest lap as well, a 1:31.3. And now this is where that bonus point for Ben Leach could have really come in handy, because if he were to score the bonus point and finish only 1 position behind, then that could make a difference. Hewitt is really getting held up here as well. On the inside of Kevin McGlone there, the presumably Irish driver, stays out of the way in the end, but that definitely held him up. Yeah, if Hewitt were to lose the lead here and then Ben Leach were able to get fastest lap, I think that would actually give Leach the championship on countback. So this is really perilous for Freddie Hewitt. He's got to try and keep the ever-closing Abby Pulling behind him onto the back straight once again into the closing stages of this race. Ben Leach is catching them, but only slowly. He's still over 8 seconds clear, 8 seconds behind, sorry. So they really start holding each other up, these 2. I don't think Leach can catch them on pace, but he could snatch the championship away if Hewitt were to lose the lead, potentially. Let's see. Through the banking they go. Back markers doing their best to stay out of the way as Abby Pulling goes to the outside line. And Ben Leach in 3rd position. So as I said earlier, Dan Blake with the fastest lap, 1:31.3. Interestingly, actually, the previous lap, Ben Leach was only 200 slower than him. So Ben Leach is 200ths of a second away from the fastest lap, but he hasn't got it. So we need to watch their lap times as much as anything here to see if he can snatch it away. The leaders, though, are going through turns 2 and 3 for not the final time yet. We'll get at least 1 more lap after this. So Abby Pulling could get there. She's only 8 tenths behind. We're right on board now with the number 46 car, Abby Pulling. And she's going to be getting the benefit of the slipstream now. As soon as they go out onto the banking, that could allow her to close in here even further. 7 tenths of a second. You can see visibly she's carrying more speed into the corners, but she's not compromising the exit speed. That tells me she's got lots of tyre life underneath her. Perhaps lots more than Freddie Hewitt. The gap is down to 6 tenths of a second now. It's going to be half a second by the time they get up to speed on the banking, and I think she could do this. Out onto the back straight they go, and Freddie Hewitt's going to have to start watching his mirrors now. There's more traffic ahead as well. Who's that? That might be Henry Church. I think it is. Not actually, it's another blue car. Anyway, it gets out of the way. Abby Pulling is there, though. She has caught the race leader out of the chicane. Up towards the final couple of corners they go. As I said, it doesn't necessarily matter if Freddie Hewitt loses the lead. It will matter if he loses the lead and Ben Leach gets fastest lap. That's the next question we need to start asking. Through the final corners we go. Abby Pulling closing. Now, is this going to be the final lap they go on to? It's going to be touch and go, I think. We're into the final couple of minutes of racing. Abby Pulling using all of the curb there through the chicane. I think we're going to get another lap even after this, so 2 more laps to go. And Abby Pulling sets the fastest lap, would you believe, on lap 18 of the race, a 1:30.98, and that actually helps Freddie Hewitt, as daft as it sounds. That means that makes it less likely, in a way, that either of his championship rivals, Blake or Leach, are going to set the fastest lap. Dan Blake has taken 3rd place away from Leach, though, so they're scrapping and losing time to the top 2. I actually think that this is falling into the lap of Freddie Hewitt, but does he know it? That's the question. Does he know that he can let Abby Pulling go and still be champion? I don't think he does. Pulling is going to try everything to get through, and I think Freddie Hewitt is going to try everything to keep her behind. last thing that they need is contact here. That would absolutely seal the deal. You'd have to believe. Through the banking they go then. Abby Pulling, the fastest driver on the track, looking for her first ever victory in the PDC Racing League. And she is only a quarter of a second now behind the race leader, Freddie Hewitt, as they go down the back straight into the chicane. Through the left, and Pulling is quicker into the corner. She's quicker out of the corner as well. She also runs into the back of Freddie's number 17 car as they go across the white line again, back onto the track and through the double apex left-hander, the turns 3 and 4 of the Charlotte Oval. She's closing in again. She's going to get a good run here into the final chicane as they disappear through the left-hander, and she goes forward on the inside line. Abby Pulling going for the race lead. Freddie Hewitt. Oh, there's almost contact. He's off the road. Freddie Hewitt bounces over the grass, and Abby Pulling leads the race as we go on to the final lap of the season. Freddie Hewitt has conceded the race lead, and Abby Pulling has gone through. Now, I don't think there was any contact, so Hewitt shouldn't have any damage. But what does that mean for the points? Let's just absolutely confirm it. Hewitt goes down to 28 points scored for this race. That puts him 1 point ahead of Dan Blake. And, well, no, actually, Dan Blake is in third. Yeah, that's right. So Dan Blake 1 point behind him at the moment. No, Leach is back through now. Now he would score the 25 points. Blake would score the 22. Now, hang on. What does this mean then? Dan Blake in fourth position, 22 points. If he gets through and scores 25... Now, hang on a minute. No, that does make a difference. If he gets into third place, I reckon that might give him the championship by a couple of points because Freddie Hewitt's lost the lead now. Dan Blake might be in a position, if he finishes one position behind him, to actually steal the championship away. So I don't think Freddie Hewitt's going to catch Abby Pulling. It's all about Dan Blake. If Dan Blake gets past Ben Leach, that could change everything. Out of the chicane go the top two. Can Freddie Hewitt launch a last-minute charge on Abby Pulling? Dan Blake, meanwhile, is attacking Ben Leach. I think he might have gone through. Dan Blake, has he managed to get the third place? Well, he has. Dan Blake is in third position. He will score 25 points if he holds it to the line. Into the final corner, though, Hewitt has caught Abby Pulling. Can he make a move into the last corner? Pulling is late on the brakes. Shall we slow off the corner? Freddie Hewitt gets a good run. He can't quite get there. Abby Pulling wins the race. Who finishes third? They're side by side. This could decide the championship. There's contact. Around goes Dan Blake. He's in the wall. He's not going to win the championship. Ben Leach goes through into third, and through will go Ben Sharp, I think, as well. Where does Dan Blake end up? He's going to be fifth. Ben Sharp gets fourth position. Dan Blake gets fifth, and I think that just cost Dan Blake the championship on the very final corner of the season. You can't script this level of drama. Freddie Hewitt loses the race lead. He only lost the win by 13/100ths of a second. Abby Pulling gets her first ever victory, which in itself is worth celebrating. But let's have a look then. So Hewitt ends up in second. He gets 28 points. That puts him on 269 points. Dan Blake finishes the race in fifth position, which scores him just 20 points in the end. Will be 3 points back. That did cost him. If he'd have finished two positions higher, if he'd have stayed ahead of Ben Leach, Dan Blake would have been the champion because Freddie Hewitt had lost the race lead. So I cannot believe what I've just seen. There will definitely be a discussion between Ben Leach and Dan Blake after that one. They're good pals usually, but I know that Dan Blake will not be happy about that. I'm not saying that it was anybody's fault, but as soon as Dan realises how pivotal that might have been for the championship, I think, and we just see the replay there of what happens, I think Dan is going to be rather miffed with the way that ended up. It's such a shame that it came down to contact. It was always possible, I guess, given how evenly matched and competitive this lot are. But, Ben Leach, just to finish off the calculations, finishes in third. And that means that he scores 25 points, so he's on 268. So actually, he ends up finishing second in the championship, a point behind Hewitt. So I have it, as we see another replay here. Was it netcode, maybe? Oh, I really don't know. It looked like Blake was sliding anyway. It looked like maybe he was out of control anyway, and then neither of them wanted to brake until the other one did. And it's really... I'm glad that I'm not the clerk of the course, because I'm not sure that I could apportion blame either way there, unfortunately. As hard to swallow as that might be for Dan, I really don't think I could blame anybody there. Well, what we can do is give you the result provisionally, because this might change, and we'll keep you posted if we get any news in the immediate aftermath of the race. Abby Pulling, congratulations to Abby Pulling. She gets her first ever victory in the PDC Racing League, and what a drive it was to get past Freddie and take the victory. Hewitt ends up second, just 13 100ths behind her. Ben Leach in third, Ben Sharp in fourth, Dan Blake in fifth. Even if they gave Leach a penalty, I don't think it would benefit Blake, because he would still only finish fourth at the best. So I really don't think it's going to make any difference. But either way, provisionally he ends up fifth. Jack Lett sixth, Hart seventh, Kyle Power eighth, Alex Rivette ninth, Alex Hall in 10th. Michael Seal was 11th, David Ward was 12th, Gavin Johnson 13th, Ian Best 14th, and Charles Kellyman rounds out the points ahead of Ed Cooper, Ben Best, Pip Hammond, Alex Rhodes, and Kevin McGlode, with Adam Southgate, Jake Wood, Ian Court, Henry Church, Alan Toon, Lee Vaughan, and Chris Knox, the last of the finishers. We lost, unfortunately, Kevin Boland, Lima Bett, Sam Holman, Doug Hamilton, Chris Nyland, Ben Bateman, and Ian Crosby. So, I'm waiting with bated breath for the official points to come through. I can see Ben Leach is waiting to have a chat, but let's wait and see if our race winner, Abby Pulling, appears first, because it would be nice to have a chat with Abby as she gets her first ever victory in the PDC Racing League. And what drama. What a dramatic final race. It looked as though it was going to be a fairly calm race. After Leach had the spin earlier on, I didn't really think that anyone would have the pace to catch Hewitt, but Abby Pulling just plugged away at it and was able to catch and pass the leader. And in fairness, it was a clean battle as well. Freddie Hewitt, I think, knew that he was beaten. He knew that racing away with Abby wasn't really going to help him. And in the end, he gave up the win. Little did he know that that could so easily have lost him the championship, but I think he has managed to get it. We'll keep waiting. I want to absolutely be sure of this before I start talking to either Freddie, Ben, or Dan and tell them that one of them is the champion. But the way that we work it out, it looks as though Freddie Hewitt's got it. What we can do is have a word with Abby Pulling in the meantime, because she has now arrived, the race winner. So let's pull her in for a chat. First ever victory in the PDC Racing League for Abby Pulling, and her third podium last 4 races. Abby, well done. You are at last a winner in the PDC Racing League, and what a dramatic way to do it. Fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't really expect it, because before I didn't even think I was going to race before this race, because I hadn't done any practice and my Wi-Fi was giving out a little bit. I'm on my hotspot at the moment, so God. Yeah. Considering I did about 3 laps of practice, I'm quite chuffed with it.
That is remarkable, and not only because you clearly found some speed in that race, but you also really seemed to save tyres and bring on a lot of speed towards the end of the race. Was that your intention, to take it easy in the early stages, or is that just the way it kind of happened to work out?
I mean, I was pushing the whole race really, and then all of a sudden I just kind of found some pace, and it just kept coming, and I was keeping Dan behind me fair. And then all of a sudden, I started pulling the leader in, and I think the back markers helped in that as well. They were quite nice of me, whereas I think Freddie caught him a bit more in the corners. But I mean, I'm not complaining.
We're happy to see you win. We're very happy to see you win. But were you aware that overtake you made on Freddie very briefly took him out of the championship lead with a lap to go, or was that the furthest thing from your mind at that point?
Well, I'm in a Discord chat with Dan and all the year 1 lot whilst I'm doing it. So when I was catching them, they were like, "Yeah, make sure you overtake him because the championship lead." And I'm like, "I just want to win, but if that helps, then that helps."
It did temporarily. We believe Freddie's ended up catching it anyway because of some drama behind, but nonetheless, let this not detract from the fact that was a brilliant drive, Abby. We're hoping to have season 3 starting shortly. If that's the case, are you going to be back for a championship tilt?
I don't know. I've been jumping in for a round every now and then, but I might see me do the whole championship next year or next season.
Yeah, no, it's hard to get out of those sort of those words. In last year, it should hopefully roll around very shortly, and it would be great to see you in there for a full season. I definitely think you've got the speed to fight for it. Great job, anyway. Well done on the race win, and hopefully the first of many.
Yeah, thank you.
Abby Pulling with the race victory. Now then, shall we dive into the championship contenders? Because I have now had some confirmation from Pip Hammond. We have Freddie Hewitt the champion on 269 points. Hewitt, we think you've won it by a single point. Can you even begin to put into words the stress you were under throughout the entirety of that race?
It was mental. Sweating buckets. Just the whole time I've got people going in my ear like, "Oh, you need to be here, you need to be there," and I was like, "What do I do? What's the outcome going to be if I'm here? What happens if they're there?" It was really, really mental.
It was mental to be part of it. It was pretty mental to be calling the race as well, because I think in the last 2 laps, championship lead changed about 4 or 5 times. You lost second place, that meant you lost the championship lead, and then Ben Leach got past Dan, which meant you got it back, and then Dan had a lunge and they made contact, and it was all kicking off behind you. But really all you could do was try and win the race, and it really, really looked like that was going to happen. What was it, just tyres that were going away there towards the end?
I think I just sort of looked at the gap and sort of it was more of an error on my behalf. I think I just sort of looked at the gap and went, "That'll do. That's all I need," and then tried to monitor the gap and didn't expect Abby to be as quick as she was.
Yeah, she came on really strong there in the final part of the race, and it must have been confusing knowing what to do, because the temptation is to defend like your life and championship depends on it, I suppose. But you made the right call in the end. We do think you won it by a point, and that must be so satisfying, because the season started off relatively positively, but it could have gone better. You didn't get your first win until the third to last race of the season. So at what point throughout the season did you suddenly kind of think, oh, okay, maybe this is on after all?
Must have been Donington, the last round at Donington. I sort of came into the season, as I've been saying all season, I've not really expected to be where I am in a championship battle. I wasn't expecting that. I sort of came into this one as more of a test year. But then after Donington, when we had such a good round, and I looked at where I was in the championship, I still didn't really believe that I could do it here unless there was big issues, and there were big issues.
Well, they may have had problems, the others, but you still had to drive the wheels off that car. You got a win and a second place. It was almost the perfect point score. So a thoroughly deserved championship. You kept us on our toes all season long, certainly all the way through tonight. Congratulations, enjoy it, and hopefully we'll see you back again in season 3.
Yeah, just like to say a quick thank you to obviously Faster. They helped me out a lot with what they do. Obviously my family, and big shout out to my dog, who's a bit ill at the moment.
Your chief mechanic, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's a bit ill at the moment, bless him. So
Oh no,
hope he gets through it. So thank you.
Absolutely, no, I second those thoughts. So get well soon, Freddie's dog, and congratulations, Freddie. You are the PDC Racing Season 2 champion.
Cheers, thank you.
Freddie Hewitt then gets the championship by a single point. You couldn't script it, could you? Third place in the race was Ben Leach. Let's drag him in for a chat, shall we then? He misses out on the championship, which is so bitter, really, for a few reasons. Ben, you miss out on the championship after some really bad luck tonight, really. Obviously, you had the incident in race 1. Incident in race 2, though, was a bit stranger. It was hard for us to tell whether you missed your braking point or maybe Freddie braked early. What was your view of that?
Yeah, I mean, with race 2 incident, Freddie just broke so early. Like, to be honest, I don't know him well. I'm sure he didn't do it intentionally, but it felt like a brake check because it was literally 100 meters before where you would normally brake, and obviously caught me unaware, so I had to swerve to miss him, and then you go in round. But really, I threw it away, I think, in race 1. That was down to me, so I can't have a bit of, feelings towards Freddie, and well done to him because he was very consistent, and that's what won it for him in the end. I assume he has won the championship.
We think by a single point, so you only actually lost out by a point, and I'm sure not to your Moody's even worse than it I'm sure already is, but that penalty you had at Donington Park almost certainly has been a factor as well. So it's really just been one bit of bad luck after the other for you lately, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite unhappy about that protest. I think on the first lap, you're surrounded by traffic, things happen. It was a minor contact. I actually believe it was 0 rated on iRacing. So I was very surprised that a protest went in. But anyway, it is what it is. And I think in race 2, me and Dan had just the most epic battle ever. So I hope we put on a good show for everyone. And, you know, for it to actually come down to the last corner of the last lap of the last race of the season, that, at least with Dan anyway, that was pretty special.
Yeah, no, most definitely. It was an incredible spectacle. And you've left your mark on season with those 4 wins, 3 in a row as well, which is very, very hard to do. So it really could have gone to any one of the 3 of you, couldn't it? And I think that's the main thing that I'm taking away from this. The strength in depth we've had in the field this season has been remarkable, which makes all 3 of your achievements, you know, even more commendable.
Sure, I think it's a very, very challenging championship to win. It surprised me, even though I've had the pace, that just shows it's not straightforward. And I think consistency really pays, and well done to Freddie again. He really deserved it, and well done to Dan too, and the other guys. And thanks to Gavin Pitt for organising it, and to you guys for the commentary. It's been fantastic to be part of it.
Here. I second those thoughts, and thanks for being a good sport all season long, Ben. Commiserations, not quite the result you wanted, but you put on a great show, so thanks for that.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Leach then comes home a gracious second place finisher in the championship, third place race. And I suppose there's one more person we really should have a chat with as well, and that is our outgoing champion, Dan Blake, who carried the number 1 on his car throughout season 2. Dan, you so nearly retained it, just 3 points back in the end, and it all came down quite literally, as Ben Leach has just said, to the last corner of the last lap of the last race of the season. You couldn't script it.
I know, it was fantastic racing. Me and Ben had a fantastic fight for the last couple of laps. There's one in particular moment where we're coming down the back straight and there's a back marker. So really, I was full-wheel drifting, trying to get around the back marker, not hit Ben, and stop the car, and somehow we didn't stop. And then at the last chicane, Ben got the better run at the slipstream, and I had to go around the outside because I knew that 3rd was enough for the championship. So I had to give it a go, and unfortunately it didn't quite work out this time. But Ben and Freddie have been fantastic all season, and big congratulations to Freddie as well for his first iRacing championship. He snuck up behind a lot of us and pipped us at the end. Abby did her bit as well. Thank you very much, Abby. She took the victory, and she helped me at Donington as well to keep me in there as well. And the rest of the Year 1 racing team as well really helped me out. And it's just been a fantastic season. It could have gone either way, but on this occasion, it's not quite been the right result for me.
It's fair to say as well, you've really not had a bad season. You've had 2 wins, 2 second places. There were just those couple of races, weren't there? The second race at Laguna Seca, the first race at Donington, where various reasons you lost points, and whereas in season 1 you could kind of get away with those races, really couldn't in season 2. So it goes to show just how strong the field has been this time around. You really couldn't afford any slip-ups.
That incident with Chris Knox last week as well on the last lap, that's also another moment where it could have been different, but it's no point looking back now. It's been a really close championship. It's really competitive, and with the amount of racing drivers we've got, real racing drivers, you see these bigger series, but us club level racers are showing that we can put on a show as well, and this championship's allowing us to sort of showcase ourselves as well. And I think it's been a fantastic season, and I imagine there'll be a lot of people wanting to join next season after this.
Yeah, I think so, and hopefully you'll be out there amongst them again to go and get that number 1 back, because as I said, you came very close to retaining it this time. Always next time though, isn't there?
Yeah, thank you as well to my sponsors, Year 1 Custom Flip Flops, as well as the Year 1 Racing team, and also to you guys for broadcasting it as well. It's been fantastic to watch back, so thank you very much for that as well, and thank you for the supporters and everyone's watching me and cheering me on as well. Thank you very much.
Well said, Dan. Thanks very much for all of your contributions throughout the season, and he'll be back in the commentary box with me again on Wednesday for the next rounds of the Power Max Racing E-Series that you can watch here on Year 1 Racing TV. So just like that, Season 2 is over in the PDC Racing League, and it couldn't have been any more dramatic if it tried. It's been a topsy-turvy year all year long. Dan Blake winning the first race at Okayama, only to then crash in race 2 whilst trying to take the lead on the final lap of the race. Then Leach came along at Alton Park, looked like he was on for the double, won the first race, didn't finish race 2, and then he went on that brilliant streak of 3 wins, 2 wins at Laguna Seca and a win at Donington for Ben Leach, and then that epic second race at Donington a week ago, which Dan Blake just referred to, where he and Chris Knox had contact whilst fighting for the victory at the last corner. How different things could have been for Dan if he'd have managed to hang on, even to finish in second in that race, but he ended up falling, or he did finish second, sorry, but if he'd have won the race, could have been so different. That was the incident that gave Freddie Hewitt his first ever victory, and then he's bounced back again here today with another win in race 1. It's second place in race 2 that for a brief moment on the final lap of the season looked as though it wasn't quite going to be enough. Then another last corner collision for Dan Blake, this time with his fellow championship rival Ben Leach, has handed the title to Freddie Hewitt, excuse me, and it has been such an incredible season. That is only a very brief summary of some of the action. Be sure to head to the PDC and Yearone Racing YouTube pages, because you can go back and catch up on all of the action if you've missed any of the races this season, or indeed from season 1. Well worth going back and having a watch through. I reckon we've still got a good few weeks of lockdown before we get back to real world racing, so you've got some time to binge your way through them. Ahead of the 3rd season of racing, which hopefully, as I said, is not that far away. More details to be released very shortly, I'm sure, by Pip and Gavin and everyone behind the PDC Racing League. But go ahead and watch all the races, and make sure you head over to the Yearone Racing TV social media pages for all of the information on upcoming broadcasts. They've got some top quality sim racing and esports action in general broadcasting continuously through the next few weeks, with some very interesting projects in the pipeline there as well. That, though, is about all we have time for, I think, here at the Charlotte Roval. Thank you, everybody who's joined us, not just tonight, but throughout the previous 4 weeks as well, throughout Season 2 of the PDC Racing League. We hope you'll be back again to support us in Season 3. Until then, though, it is goodbye from us. Thanks to Pip and Gavin. Thanks to Graham at Yearone Racing TV as well for all of his hard work behind the scenes. We'll be back, looking forward already to Season 3 in the future. But for now, from us, it's good night.